Tonight Lim Dian's retirement party was being held by the guild. Because Lim was only a B-rank hunter, the party wasn't big. It was basically him drinking with a few friends and receiving some gifts. However, he was still happy because he had all the money he saved up after working for 20 years and a few buildings under his name. After the party, he made his way back home to one of the buildings and passed out on his bed. While sleeping, he dreamt about his retirement. It was looking glorious, and all he had to do now was live the rest of his life in peace. Well, that's what he thought, but when he opened his eyes in the morning, he was in a strange apartment. Lim became depressed after realizing the apartment was his study dorm he used to live in 20 years ago. He took out his phone to confirm the date. His suspicions were correct. It was the year 2018. He threw the phone into the wall, angered about the fact he regressed right after his retirement. He held his head in dismay, questioning what he did wrong to deserve this. In his agony, he noticed a watch that Juncheol, his buddy hunter, gave him, but questioned why he still had it even though he regressed. He recalled Juncheol explaining the rumors surrounding the watch. Juncheol says the watch was a rare item, a relic of the Byron continent's legendary mage Tihital. However, at the time Lim didn't believe him. He started playing around with the watch, questioning if he regressed because of it. Before he fell asleep, he messed around with the watch, but nothing interesting happened at the time. Suddenly, his neighbor knocked on his door. The neighbor asked why he was being so loud and demanded he come outside. Lim had forgotten he lived next to the apartment owner's son, who looks like he was part of a gang. Every night the owner's son would host parties with loud music, and before Lim awakened he always stole money from him. The owner's son angrily asked why Lim was pretending not to be home. He asked if he should break the door down instead. Thinking about what the owner's son did to him in the past was really starting to get under Lim's skin. He opened the door and the owner's son asked him why he took so long. Lim said nothing and smiled at the owner's son. The bastard was wearing pretty high-quality clothing. His jacket was made from a monster's leather. The owner's son says he is getting psychological damage because of all the noise Lim was making. He was thinking of calling the cops, but he didn't want to stain the records of someone so young. So if Lim gives him money or something of value, he would forget about the psychological damage he caused him. He had been eyeing Lim's watch. He reached for it, saying the watch would do, but smacked his hand away and punched him. While the owner's son was still confused, he grabbed his face and headbutted him. The son fell to the ground, and Lim asked why a grown-ass adult like him was stealing from someone younger than him. He took the owner's son's jacket, saying it wouldn't make up for everything he stole for him, but it would be a nice start. As he walked away, the owner's son begged him to give the jacket back. He says it was a really expensive item. Lim ignored him and quickly left the apartment. As he walked, he began to wonder why he regressed to the year 2018. 2018 was the year he had an accident at a construction site and awakened. He had a hard time all his life because of the knee injury he suffered back then, so it was nice to not feel the knee pain now. He decided to start his awakening process on his own. He managed mana for 20 years in the past, so awakening on his own wasn't a problem. He closed his eyes and began feeling the mana around him. He directed the mana through his entire body, completing the awakening process. Using the mana, he checked his condition. His body was lacking nutrition, and he completely lost all of his muscles in his previous life. He began to wonder how he was able to work in his past life with his body like this. His stomach started growling, so he decided to think about this later and find something to eat first. He made his way through the city trying to find a place to eat, but everywhere he turned was under construction. Humans hadn't developed the technology back then to detect the appearance of small gates, and there would be massive losses to small and large businesses because of the sudden appearances of these small gates. And as he was walking through the city, one of these small gates suddenly appeared. The streets were suddenly in chaos, with people looking for loved ones and others asking for the cops. Lim stared at the gate, questioning why a gate suddenly appeared when he was thinking about gates. The red-spotted wild wolf came out of the gate. The red wolf is a species of monster that lives in groups. They have sharp teeth and claws that they use to rip their prey apart. While running away, an old man noticed Lim staring at the gate. The old man stopped and told Lim he should be running. Their attention was turned to a man who was calling out to his daughter. Lim narrates that he regressed in a shitty period in time. He took off his backpack that had his necessities and looked for a weapon. He found a crowbar, and after picking it up he headed towards the gate to look for the man's daughter. He heard the cries of a little girl and began making his way to that location. The little girl was surrounded by 3 red-spotted wolves. One of the wolves was about to pounce on the scared child, but Lim arrived in time to save the child. He told the girl to go to her father, and he charged in at the monsters. He quickly defeated the 3 monsters, but 2 more appeared. Lim was having a hard time fighting because of hunger, and he questioned why more wolves were coming. However, after thinking about how the wolves looked chubby and delicious, his mouth began to drool, and the wolves were scared. In the past, he was able to make delicious meals with wolf's meat, and since he was hungry, he wanted to get things done quickly. He charged at the wolves cautiously because even though he is now in a young and somewhat healthy body, it was still 20 years ago and his body wouldn't move like when he was 40. However, one difference is his knees were feeling great. One of the wolves saw that Lim was distracted and attacked, but Lim quickly moved out of the way of the attack and landed a kick on the wolf's head. The other wolf tried to attack Lim from behind, but he dodged the attack. There was no end to the wolves and Lim no longer had the crowbar to use as a weapon. He took the watch from his wrist and used it as a brace knuckle and punched the wolf. To his surprise, the watch was quite sturdy. With a weapon now in hand, he looked around and counted how many wolves were left for him to defeat. There were about 10 wolves left, making him nervous. Luckily, the police arrived. And after the police arrived, they quickly dealt with the rest of the wolves. Lim became disappointed because the jacket he stole got ripped in the battle. A police officer called out to Lim and said he wanted to ask him a few questions. The police officer thanked Lim for defending the citizens and asked for his name and guild he was affiliated with so they could get him his reward. Lim told the officer his name and says he isn't affiliated with a guild yet. He told the officer he wasn't registered as a hunter either because he awakened a few hours ago, and since he couldn't receive the reward yet, he gave the officer his number. The officer thanked Lim for his cooperation. Lim told the officer he was going now since he is busy. The officer tried to stop Lim because he had something to tell him, but Lim quickly dashed off. Lim thought his name and number would be enough for others to contact him if needed. News of Lim quickly spread through the higher networks of the guilds. Later at a dinner, a waiter brought Lim the beef cheek soup he ordered. And while enjoying the food, he received a call. He knew the call was a guild trying to recruit him, but it came quicker than he expected. But he should have expected this because this was around the time when guilds were going crazy to recruit hunters. On top of that, news of what he did during the gate has probably spread already. He checked his phone and saw he had 98 notifications. 2 years after the first gate opened is when hunters began to replace police and regular military, and guilds began coming to power. When a new hunter awakens, the guilds would have a tight competition to recruit them, and Lim suddenly appeared in the middle of all the chaos. There are a ton of hunters who chose to become criminals with their power instead of serving the public. Civilians didn't have a manual for how to react when a monster appeared, so hunters were in high demand. Around this time is also when the 6 disasters started moving. Lim no longer had a choice. If he wanted to live out his retirement peacefully, he needed to use his knowledge about the future, and if he worked hard, he could retire within 3 years. Lim was trying to enjoy his meal, but the messages kept coming in. A man approached him and asked if he was Lim Dian. Lim told him he was and asked the man who he was. The man introduced himself as Kim Gilsu, the manager of the Royal Family Guild. Kim says he really wanted to meet Lim after seeing the videos of him defeating the wolves. He was about to ask him to sign a contract with the Royal Guild, but they were interrupted by a woman who came running into the diner asking for Lim. She also says Lim's video was impressive and that he looked even cooler in person. Before she could bring up a contract, she was interrupted by the manager from the Warrior Guild. More guild recruits came into the diner, causing a commotion and ruining the other customers' dining experience. Lim asked the recruiters to quiet down, and says if any of them continued to cause a commotion, he wouldn't even think about joining their guild. He asked them if they could go somewhere else to talk. The guild recruiters decided it would be best to rent out the diner so they and Lim could talk. After the other customers finished their meals, Lim and the guild recruiters sat down. He says he doesn't want to waste their time and asked how high they were willing to go for the contract signing bonus. Kim suggested that each guild recruiter have a one-on-one talk with Lim since the contract has a non-disclosure clause. Lim asked Kim if he was the recruiter for the Royal Family Guild. Kim replied yes and began to explain that the Royal Family Guild was very prestigious, but before he could finish explaining, Lim asked him to leave. Kim looked confused, so Lim told him he had no plans of signing with the Royal Family Guild. Lim didn't see the point in signing with the Royal Family Guild when they were on the verge of merging with another guild soon. He turned to the other recruiters and asked how much the rest of them were willing to offer, and a guild recruiter suddenly shouted, "We will offer you 1 billion. Another recruiter says 1.1 billion and another says 1.2 billion. The number kept getting higher, so Lim remained silent, waiting to see how much the Blackhound would offer. That was the guild he signed with in his previous life. Baek Youngwi, the White House guild manager, says they would give him 2 billion, a base salary, incentives, loot, commissions, and the best conditions that no other guild can provide. The White House Guild is a guild that formed recently, but with his knowledge of the future, Lim knows in 1 year the White House Guild will become one of the top 3 guilds in Korea. He thought that's the reason why they are able to expend so much resources. Lim asked all the other recruiters except Baek to leave, but they could leave a business card in case he changed his mind. After the other recruiters left, Baek says she watched Lim's fight with the wolves many times before she got to the diner. She thought he fought with great skills for someone who recently awakened. Lim knows this was an elegant way of her saying she did a background check on him. Baek says she is certain Lim is either a genius or he gained an ability that gives him the upper hand in a fight. She laid the contract on the table and told Lim the White House Guild would like to nurture him. Getting recruited by the White House Guild was something Lim couldn't even think about in his previous life. But he needed more so he could retire early, so he asked Beak if he could add a few more clauses to the contract. Beak said he could and watched as Lim updated the contract. After he finished, Beak laughed and said Lim was a comedian. Lim told her he wasn't joking. Beak went over the clauses that Lim added to the contract and read them out loud. Lim only wanted to work for 4 days a week, and he wanted the right to refuse a mission that takes a long time to complete. Beak suddenly got serious and said the clauses must be a joke. Lim didn't back down and says those were his conditions. Beak asked him why he was so confident in himself. Lim ignored her question and said in return he would make sure the White House Guild doesn't regret signing a contract with him. Beak got up from the table and says she would see Lim in a few days with the revised contract. As she was leaving, she winked at him and said next time they should skip the coffee and have a drink together. However, Lim wasn't falling for her flirts. He knows Beak is the guild master's daughter. Since he had the guild situation settled, it was time for him to get registered as a hunter. Inside the disaster management center, in the hunter's support department, the receptionist asked Lim if he planned on getting registered right now. She told him the person in charge isn't in the office at the moment, and she was new so she couldn't do it on her own. Lim says he was in a hurry and asked if they could work something out. The receptionist says she would try contacting her superior first. This made Lim happy because the person in charge was someone he wanted to avoid. The receptionist called her superior and informed him Lim was trying to get registered. Her superior allowed it. The receptionist took Lim to the testing room, and on the way she asked if he had any special abilities. Lim says he is the type of hunter that uses physical strengthening, but he doesn't have a special ability. But this was a lie. This era doesn't have a magical power meter yet, so they could only find out about his abilities and true power if he told them. But in this life he doesn't want anyone to know his special ability. She brought him into a room and asked him to pick up a barbell that weighed 405 pounds. Lim physically enhanced his body and picked up the weight with ease. The receptionist was shocked and said Lim really did awaken. Lim turned and asked her if she thought he was lying. She apologizes and says some people come in claiming to have awakened, but it ended up being a waste of time. They moved on to the next test and a while later they finished. She handed him the temporary hunter's certificate and says they would contact Lim when the official certificate was ready. Lim grabbed the certificate and started heading for the door. As he walked through the door, he ran into the person in charge. He put his head down and passed by him quietly. The hunter's support team's Ju Sangwook was someone Lim didn't see the good in interacting with, so he made plans to never come back again. However, even though he didn't want to be involved with Ju was interested in him. After leaving the disaster management center, Lim went to the contamination control area. The contamination control area has been completely sealed off, ruined, and abandoned because of monsters, but things changed when the dimensional gate opened up. A year from now, a gate would open to connect Earth to Gaia, a fantasy world where swords and magic exist. In Korea, only one gate is expected to open, and it was in the contamination control area. Lim planned on buying the contamination control area once he gets his signing bonus from the White House Guild, because it will make him a fortune once the dimensional gate opens. He started to unpack his things so he could prepare to hunt monsters. However, he suddenly heard someone speaking in the Gaia continent's language. He used his ability Stealth and began making his way to where it was coming from. The Stealth skill hides his presence by assimilating him into his surroundings. In his previous life, this ability was why he had to go on risky missions like scouting, spying, and assassinations. However, he swore to never go through that again. He heard the voice asking for someone not to get close, so Lim wondered if the person was being chased. But before he could come to conclusions, he needed to check out what was happening with his own eyes. The person speaking in Gaia language was surrounded by 3 men. The little girl says she warned the men and they brought this upon themselves. The little girl started casting a fireball spell, surprising the men. However, instead of being scared, the men thought it was awesome, because they could sell the girl for a higher price. After arriving, Lim stood a distance away so he wouldn't be noticed. He wondered if the little girl was a dimensional refugee and questioned how she got herself in this situation. One of the men with a snake tattoo on his arm asked the girl to come with them and they would buy her something delicious to eat. Lim recognized the tattoo. It was the mark of the criminal group called Red Snake. However, he didn't know those bastards were involved in human trafficking too. He didn't have enough mana left, so he got closer and deactivated the stealth skill. Then he took out his knife and killed the man with the tattoo. And while the other men were still confused, he quickly killed them too. He spoke in the language of Gaia and asked the little girl if she was from the Gaia continent. He said he wanted to ask her a question. The little girl was surprised and asked Lim how he is able to speak her language. Before Lim could respond, the little girl's stomach started growling. He asked the little girl if she liked eating meat. After the little girl finished eating, she thanked Lim for saving her and giving her something to eat. She says she would repay his kindness someday. Lim asked her how she was able to cross the dimensional gate alone, but the little girl didn't answer, so he asked her where she was before coming to the dimensional gate. The little girl says she didn't want to talk about it, so Lim asked her for her age, but again she refused to give him an answer. He continued to ask her questions, but in the end he couldn't find out anything about the girl. The little girl asked Lim to help her. She says she was weak and knew nothing about this strange place, however she could use fire. She activated her ability to show Lim, but the fire quickly went out and she said she didn't have full control over her fire ability yet. Lim told her he was too busy to babysit a kid, and he had no reason to help her. However, he said she could stay with him for 1 month. In that month he would teach her their language, some basic knowledge, and in return she would do chores and follow his orders. The little girl happily agreed, making Lim regret his decision already. He handed her some dishes and said her stay with him wouldn't be free. The little girl took the dishes and introduced herself as Lily. She was hoping her and Lim would get along. Lily looked around, questioning where she was supposed to wash the dishes Lim handed to her. Lim pointed to where she was supposed to wash the dishes. After Lily left, Lim began to question why her name sounded so familiar. He recalled the monster who would burn half of Seoul to a crisp 10 years from now. This person's name was Lily too, and she was from the Gaia continent with red hair the color of flames and the ability to use fire. This person would become one of the 6 disasters, the Fire Witch. Lily looked similar to this person. In fact, they were basically identical. Lim knows that the Fire Witch was kidnapped by a criminal organization when she was young and raised as a disaster. So if Lily was the Fire Witch, then he likely ended up stopping one of the disasters from happening. The next day he and Lily went to the market. Lily looked around at all the food stands and asked Lim where they were. Lim told her they were at the market and said he plans on making a special dinner for the both of them. Lily became excited to see what Lim would make, and a few minutes later Lim brought them to a meat stand and asked the seller if he had any raptor tenderloins. The seller told Lim they had plenty. Lim then narrates that after the opening of the first dimensional gate, the food crisis caused people to start eating monster meat. Right now there was a lot of monster meat, but people aren't willing to eat the meat from the monsters. But that was only because they didn't know the functions of the meat yet. The meat and other monster ingredients contain mana, which helps hunter cultivate their mana. And in the future it would become impossible to buy ingredients infused with mana. Lim proceeded to buy as much of the monster meat as possible, and because Lily was with him the seller gave him plenty extra. As they were walking back to the contamination control area they stopped by a clothing store and Lim asked Lily to pick out some clothes she would want to wear. Lily picked out a cute outfit and showed it to Lim. Lim looked at the price tag of the dress and picked out a tracksuit for Lily instead. Lim told Lily that it wouldn't feel right if she was wearing good clothes in the contaminated control area. Later that night Lim cooked the special meal he was talking about by mixing all the meats he bought from the market. He called it Lim's signature mana nutrition-rich meal. Lily stared at the food and asked Lim if the food is editable. Lim didn't know how to respond and says healthy foods are meant to look like this. Lily began to smell something other than what Lim made. She asked Lim as he was smelling it too. Lim told her he got chicken for them to eat after his masterpiece, but it wouldn't hurt if he opened the chicken box now. Lily ate one of the drumsticks, instantly falling in love with it. She says from now on chicken will be the only thing she eats. Lim grabbed the box of chicken and told Lily to eat his masterpiece too, or he would mix the chicken with the food he made. Lily begged him not to do it and said she would eat his food too. Lim poured himself some of the soup and said he didn't understand why Lily was being so picky. It wasn't like the soup he made was completely inedible. But in reality he struggled to eat the soup as well. It was just barely at the level that he wouldn't die from eating it. Lim continued to eat the soup while thinking about all of the delicacies he would be enjoying right now if he didn't regress. After they finished, Lim asked Lily to do the dishes. He asked her not to disturb him. Lim sat down and started using the Great Sea Mind technique. This technique boosts one's magical power and it was flexible on how to use it. He trained his mana using the technique before he regressed, but to his surprise his mana was increasing faster than he expected. Before he regressed, no matter what effort he put into this mind technique, it never worked this well. He began to wonder if it was because of the food and his young age. As he continued to meditate, he could feel his danshan increasing vastly. At this rate, if he continued to eat mana-rich food and meditate with the Great Sea Mind technique, he would be stronger than when he regressed. A while later he finished his meditation, and his stomach was growling. Lily, who had finished the dishes, heard Lim's stomach and asked him if he wanted to get some chicken. However, instead of buying chicken, Lim made more of his soup, making Lily upset. 2 days later, Lim was impressed with the results he managed to achieve in that short amount of time. At the level he could go for a treasure hunt. He received a phone call from Beak, and after he picked up, she says she was disappointed. She thought Lim was going to call her first. She asked if he wasn't concerned about her well-being. Lim had totally forgotten Beak existed and told her he was busy. He asked her if she finished adding the clauses he mentioned to the contract. Beak remained silent, and judging from her silence, Lim concluded she ran into some problems. Beak told Lim that she convinced the guild leader, but he wanted Lim to prove his skills before he hired him. Lim asked Beak if the guild leader wanted him to take a test. Beak apologized, saying she also thinks he doesn't need to take a test, but there's nothing she could do. She told him if he waited a few more days she could find another way. Lim quickly told her he wanted to take the test, however he had one condition. The next day, Lim and Lily made their way to the White House Guild's HQ, where they met with Beak, who asked about Lily. Lim told Beak that Lily is his half-sister. He told Beak that Lily lived abroad, so her Korean isn't great, and he would have to bring her around with him for the meantime. Lily thought Beak was beautiful. She asked Lim who Beak was, and Lim told her Beak is someone who would give them money. In Lily's mind, money equaled chicken, so she concluded that Beak was a good person. Beak told Lim that the guild wouldn't mind having Lily around. She says the White House Guild doesn't meddle in the lives of hunters. Beak brought them into the guild leader's office, where they were greeted by the White House Guild leader Changsu. Changsu reaches forth his hand for a handshake and says the White House Guild wanted to reach out to Lim earlier, but certain things had come up. Lim shook his hand and says he didn't mind because he also had some personal issues. Changsu says he heard Lim wanted double the contract sum if he passed the White House Guild's test, but he was beginning to question if Lim was really worth that much. Changsu released his aura. Lim was sure Changsu didn't know any martial arts or magic, but his aura was still overwhelming. It's no wonder he is the guild leader, and if it was some other hunter, Changsu's intimidation tactics would have worked. But it wouldn't work on him. Lim started releasing his aura and told Changsu he would prove his worth. This surprised Changsu. Changsu quickly turned to Beak and asked her to rewrite the contract. Beak told him if they rewrite the signing contract with the previous terms, Lim might reject it. Changsu told Beak not to worry and asked her to triple the contract signing bonus. He also told her to add a clause that says Lim would be paid 20 billion as a signing bonus if he passed all of the tests. This shocked Lim because the offer went from 2 billion to 20 billion. He told Changsu that he enjoyed his leadership and says he is ready for the test. Later at the White House Guild training grounds, Beak told Lim that to pass the test he has to win in sparring matches against 3 members of the White House Guild. And since it was a test, she asked him to be careful. She introduced Hwan Janghak and said he would be Lim's first opponent. Beak asked Lim if he would like to choose a weapon for the match. Lim showed her his watch and said it would be enough. This irritated Hwan. From the looks of it, Lim only awakened recently, but yet he was already being arrogant. Changsu started the match, but before attacking, Hwan whispered, saying he would cripple Lim. Lim took a defensive stance, questioning why Hwan wasn't attacking. Before he regressed, he read about Hwan from a magazine. Hwan's trait is speed. He has the ability to get faster the more he moves without stopping, which is why he wanted to win quickly. Hwan ran directly at Lim and began running circles around him. Lim thought Hwan would attack him directly. This was not what he was expecting. The White House Guild members watched the battle with lack of anticipation. They were amazed as they watched their guild members speed up. They all came to the conclusion that Hwan would win this battle. Changsu's eyes were fixated on the battle, and Beak watched nervously. Hwan had gotten so fast that all Lim could see were his after images. He told Lim not to worry because he would end the battle quickly. Using his momentum, he attacked Lim. However, before he could land his attack, Lim was able to attack with the watch. As Hwan fell to the ground, Lim wondered if he knew the momentum from his speed could be redirected at him. Lim turned to Changsu and asked for his next opponent. Changsu approached Lim, saying he had amazing eyes to be able to keep up with Hwan's speed. Lim thanked him and asked if Hwan would be okay. Changsu said Hwan didn't suffer any life-threatening injuries, and the medical staff is by his side right now, so he'll be good after a few days' rest. Changsu thanked Lim and says if he didn't hold back, Hwan's life might have been in danger. Lim was surprised that Changsu knew he was concealing his strength. If he really wanted to, he could have easily made Hwan's head fly off. Lim looked up at the guild members who were watching him. After defeating Hwan, his signing bonus is now at 6 billion and that money is guaranteed. He also now meets the requirements to join the guild. He smiled at them, hoping the rest of the test would be just as fun. Lily noticed his face and asked why he was smiling like a pervert. Lim told her he was trying to intimidate the other guild members. They quickly made their way to the second test location, which was the artificial forest training grounds, where Beak explained that the first unit of the White House Guild has 6 teams containing 5 people, and below them is the second division. She pointed to his next opponent and says he is the first unit's 6 team's captain. Yang Di-hoon introduced himself and said he hoped he and Lim could have a good match. He reached forth his hand hoping to get a handshake. However, Lim realized that Yang was among the guild members earlier and was directing killing intent at him. Lim didn't shake his hand. Instead, he put up his fist and said he was ready. Yang grabbed his sword and also said he was ready. With both parties ready, Changsu ran the bell signaling the start of the spar, and Lim quickly charged in and attacked Yang. Yang blocked the attack with his shield and counter with his sword. Lim dodged the attack but left himself in a compromising position. Yang thought this was his golden opportunity and attacked Lim with his shield. However, Lim disappeared and appeared behind him. Lim used the skill Eagle's Claw. Yang was able to block that attack with his shield in time, but he was now beginning to wonder if Lim learned martial arts before he awakened. He countered Lim's attack with his sword, but Lim was able to dodge the attack and send him flying. Lim was starting to get annoyed because Yang's physical endurance was no joke. Yang got up from Lim's attack and praised him for being strong. Lim didn't know what to do. He could end the fight, but he planned on hiding his power until the last test. But the sly Changsu put him in a position where he would have to lay everything out. Yang told Lim that after the fight he will request he be assigned to his team. He felt like him and Lim would be great partners. Lim asked him when he agreed to join his team, and Yang told him the winner could make a request. Yang asked Changsu if this wasn't what he said. Changsu said yes and told Lim that this was part of the contract. Lim said since it was already this way, if he won he wanted to become a team leader. The other guild members who were watching started laughing and said Lim was talking nonsense. Lim doubled down and told Changsu that if he won he wanted to run his own team that would be filled with people hired by him. And he wanted to have the freedom to carry out missions independently. At first he was going to wait and prove his skills before he proposed this, but there is no point in waiting now if he could get the team leader position along with the 20 billion signing bonus. Changsu agreed to Lim's proposition, but said if he lost he would half the signing bonus and double the contract period, and Lim verbally agreed to the new contract. Yang called out to Lim and asked if he really thought he could win. Lim laughed and asked Yang if he was jealous because Beak was showing interest in him. Lim said Yang was directing killing intent at him earlier because Beak wanted him, and Yang wanted to act all high and mighty by crushing him in this match. Lim knows that in the near future Yang was going to cause a huge controversy. He went through all sorts of humiliation and ultimately was kicked out of the White House Guild. He called Yang a pervert, which was his last straw. Yang told him he would show him what a future team leader is made of and activated his rage mode. Lim recognized this skill. It's a skill that activates when the user loses all reasoning. It raises the user's mana level and boosts their physical abilities. With his new physical boost, Yang charged at Lim at great speeds. However, Lim remained calm. He allowed Yang to get closer and activated the lightning fist technique. And before he punched Yang, he told him that for his sake he should block the attack with his shield. However, his advice didn't matter because his attack broke through Yang's shield and sent his unconscious body flying through the woods. Yang's defeat surprised the other White House Guild members. Lim fell to the floor. His entire body was aching. He couldn't believe he lost so much strength after just one lightning fist attack. However, there was nothing he could do, so for now he did a temporary fix using the mind technique. After all, he would have to use lightning fist again in the next fight. After he was finished, he made his way back where Beak congratulated him for becoming the 7th team leader. Lim liked the sound of being called the 7th team leader very much. The contract stated that passing the second test would guarantee him $1 billion as a yearly pay, and $6 billion as a signing bonus. His new goal was getting the 20 billion signing bonus. Since he was prepared, he asked Beak who he would be facing next. Changsu spoke, saying that would be him. Changsu says he didn't think Lim would actually win against Yang, so he now has no choice but to make himself be Lim's last test. Lim looked at Changsu, questioning if he really had to fight this monster. Lim gave up on the third test, surprising Changsu. Changsu told Lim he would give him $20 billion if he lasted for just 5 minutes. He saw from Lim's face that he wasn't interested. So he told Lim if he lasted for just 3 minutes he would give him $3 billion. However, Lim refused, saying he couldn't fight anymore. And Beak angrily told her father it was time for them to finalize the contract. Beak took Lim back to her office where he signed the contract. After he signed it, she told him the terms of the contract were ridiculous. Lim told her he knew and said he hoped they would have a good time working together. She said likewise and asked Lim how he planned on hiring members for his team. Lim told her he doesn't know yet but says he plans on scouting them out one by one. He asked Beak if he could sign a contract with someone right now. She told him it was possible but asked who he wanted to hire. He said it was someone who's not affiliated with any guild yet and is extremely talented, and called Lily's name. Lily turned to Lim and asked why he called. Lim asked her to make a fireball as big as she could. However, she refused, saying she was hungry. Lim told her if she did it he would give her 3 chicken legs. She quickly got out of her chair and asked Lim to keep his promise. She activated a giant fireball for her 3 chicken legs. Beak was surprised that Lily had supernatural powers too. Lim says her powers is why he wanted to put her on his team right away. Lim was impressed that Lily's fire wasn't burning the surrounding area. It means she's controlling her ability perfectly. She was controlling a fireball of that size even though he only taught her for a few days. There was no longer a doubt in his mind that Lily was one of the disasters. He asked Beak if they could negotiate Lily's contract payments right now. He was asking for $3 billion to start. But before they could start, Lily told them to wait and asked Lim for the chicken he promised. Lim had no choice but to go out and quickly buy Lily her chicken, and when he got back, him and Beak finished Lily's contract. Lily was now a member of Team 7 and her contract payment was 5 billion won. Beak took Lim and Lily around the White House Guild building, showing them the different facilities the guild had to offer. She explained that the guild also hired regular people to help operate the training rooms, living spaces, operation control rooms, and other facilities. However, the whole time Lim didn't look impressed, so she asked why he wasn't surprised by the guild's cutting-edge technology and facilities. Lim responded saying it takes a lot to surprise him. However, in reality, the facilities Beak was showing him were old compared to the ones in the future. Beak brought him to the equipment development workshop, which Lim thought was impressive. She says that if there's any equipment Lim would want, the guild could make it within a week. Lim says he wouldn't need weapons because he had someone to make it for him. But in the meantime, he wanted to take a few things to use. He picked up 2 daggers that he thought would last him a while, and told Beak he would be using them for the time being. He put the daggers in a dagger holster and asked Beak if she was done showing him around the guild building. Beak said since it was Lim's first day, they would let him go after his meeting with the president. At that moment, Changsu, who had been looking for Lim and Beak, entered the equipment development workshop. He told Lim that there was an urgent message from the operation control room, but every team was already out on the field. He apologized to Lim, saying he didn't want to do this to him on his first day working for the guild, and asked if Lim would be able to go to the site. Lim was disappointed. He thought he would get off work early today since it was his first day. Changsu told him he wouldn't have asked if it wasn't an emergency, and Lim disappointedly asked for the location. They equipped Lim with an earpiece before he left, and after he arrived at the location, Beak asked how the site looked. Lim told her that there is a gate 10 meters above the ground, and giant snails are coming out in large quantities. And the other guild's hunters were struggling against the snails. It was a shit show. Lim told Beak that most of the monsters had been taken care of, and asked if he really had to step in. Beak informed him that the guild needed a sample of the new monsters, and asked him to safely secure 3 of the snails alive. Lim said okay and told her he will begin shortly. Lim knows that the snails are monsters that are going to be avoided in the future. The name of the monster is Giant Smelly Snail. The monsters themselves are weak, but they explode on impact and let out a bad stench. The smell was bothering Lily, and she asked Lim why he didn't look bothered by the smell. Lim says he blocked his sense of smell with mana, and he asked Lily if she wanted to learn. Lily was surprised. She never knew mana had so many uses. She began trying to block her sense of smell with mana, and Lim told her she wouldn't be able to do it right away. However, she quickly turned to him with an excited look on her face, saying it worked. Lim was surprised. He didn't even give her proper instructions, yet she was able to do it on her first try. He began to wonder how talented Lily is. He told Lily to stay by the car while he captured 3 snails so they could return quickly. Looking around, Lim noticed that no one had been able to capture a proper sample. He concluded that the other hunters were struggling because the snails exploded with the slightest bit of mana. But attacking it without mana doesn't do enough damage. He quickly rushed towards the gate looking for a snail he could capture. He came across a snail up a tree. Lim approached the tree and kicked it down, and as the snail fell to the ground, he used Tai Chi to knock it unconscious. Lily, who was on standby watching Lim, saw the move he just used and asked him to teach her. Lim told her if she wanted to learn, she would have to pay him 100 billion. Lily asked him how much chicken 100 billion could buy. Lim didn't respond. He was starting to get annoyed by Lily's talent. She was quickly stealing all of his moves. A few minutes later, Lim called into the control room and informed Beak that he collected all 3 specimens and is handing them to the collection team. Beak was shocked, and she questioned how Lim was able to get his mission done so quickly. She asked him if he was nervous about his first mission or if he had any questions. Lim told her he had nothing to be nervous about because when they arrived, the monsters were almost gone. As she was giving him some final instructions, they were interrupted by a couple of hunters who asked Lim if he was with the White House Guild. They hadn't seen Lim's face before, so they asked him if he was a newbie. Lim told them he was, which shocked them. They saw a strap around Lim's arm and questioned if he was a team leader, but that didn't make sense because the White House Guild had enough people to make team leader instead of a newbie. Jang Xiaokan, leader of Team 5 and Lim's superior in his past life, asked if the move he used earlier was his ability. Lim was tired of making small talk with the hunters. He told them to stop blabbering and tell him what they wanted. Jang says because the snails kept exploding, his team hasn't been able to collect a proper sample. Lim didn't see how this was his problem and asked if they wanted him to give them the sample he collected. However, he said he didn't want to. Jang was starting to get irritated, and he asked Lim why he was talking to him so informally. He began to approach Lim but was quickly stopped by the leader of Team 3 for the Warrior Guild, who told Jang to use his words instead of violence. The leader of Team 5 for the Warrior Guild approached Lim asking him not to be harsh to his future friends. He told Lim that they would be seeing each other often in the field, so it will be nice if they were nice to each other. In the control room, Beak told Lim not to give them the samples and says she would make an official complaint to the other guilds later. Lim experienced this kind of stuff a lot in his previous life. He knows that if he doesn't give the hunters the bag, they would likely attack him for it. He threw the bag on the floor and told the hunters to take it. Beak complained to Lim, telling him he shouldn't have done that. The hunters laughed, saying Lim should have done this from the beginning. Lim smiled. He approached the bag and sat on it, saying the hunters could take the bag if they were able to forcibly take it from him. Lim's word angered the hunters and they said they tried to resolve things with words, but Lim brought this on himself. Jang cut in front of the other two hunters, saying he wanted to have a go at Lim first. Lim whispered to Lily. He asked her to light everything around here on fire when he gave the signal. Lily asked Lim if he wanted her to burn the other hunters alive. Seeing the disaster side of Lily made Lim nervous, and he told her not to burn them alive because things would get annoying if they killed the hunters. Jang shouted at Lim to get up so he could educate him, as someone who's been a hunter longer than he had. Their attention was quickly turned to the gate because of the screams of the other hunters. The gate was raging with mana and they were questioning why it changed all of a sudden. A giant snail the size of a building came out of the gate, and Jang and the other team leaders quickly ordered their team members to prepare for combat. They surrounded the giant snail and told Lim not to join the battle. They said if he interfered and happened to be hit by their attacks, they wouldn't take responsibility. Lim grabbed his bag and told them he wouldn't interfere. He told Lily to follow him so they could put the bag in the control team's car. The other hunters were struggling to fight off the giant snail. Its strength was higher than they expected, and its tentacles were making it hard to approach the monster's body. After putting his samples in the back of the control team's car, Lim helped Lily put her bag in the car as well. Beak informed him that he needs to fight the monster. She said he should get at least one hidden so the White House Guild could make a claim of ownership for some of the loot. Lim smiled and told her not to worry. He told her that the other hunters would never be able to defeat the giant snail like that. Jang and the other captains told the tanks to block while the rest of the team took care of the tentacles. The tankers in front informed them that the monster's mucus was melting their shields. Jang pulled the tankers out and told the others to prepare to attack from afar. At the control team's car, Lily asked Lim if he was just going to watch the other hunters suffer. Lim told her he was and said he needed them to leave. One of the tankers, Wang Guho of the Blackhound Guild, nicknamed the Pushover King, was slowing the others down. Jang told him to move quicker or they would leave him behind. The hunters' weapons had been melted and they were being chased by the giant snail. Jang quickly ordered everyone to retreat. However, because of his ability, Wang was caught by the monster's tentacles. The monster was about to eat Wang. Luckily, Lim stepped in. He told Wang that he was using his ability incorrectly and said if he wanted to learn how to use it properly, he should come find him later. Lim called Lily and told her they should get started. Lily activated her ability, creating a wall of fire between them and the other hunters. Beak told Lim that he was acting rashly. She says a support team would arrive in 5 minutes, so if he waited, he wouldn't have to take on the monster with just Lily. Lim said if he waits for those 5 minutes, the support teams for the other guilds would arrive too. He wanted to monopolize the loot for the White House Guild. It was hard for her to continue to observe Lim with the drone because of the fire, so she quickly evacuated the drone team. However, before the drone team evacuated, she told him that monopolizing the rewards wasn't more important than his life. Lim told her not to worry and said he would make sure to return safely. Beak told him that if he gets hurt by the monster, he will be in big trouble. The giant snail was an unusual monster that was recorded in an illustration book. Every hunter had to remember the strategy to defeat this strange monster in case of an emergency. The giant snail had one major weakness, which was fire, and after Lily used her fire ability, he could see that the snail was moving slower. He rushed at the monster, asking Lily to cover him. The snail attacked him with its tentacles. Lim knows that if he attacked the tentacles, they would recover quickly. That's why he needs Lily's help. He dodged the monster's tentacles and gave the signal to Lily. Lily shot fireballs at the snail's tentacles, burning them. They continued with this strategy until they amputated most of the snail's tentacles. Once most of its tentacles were amputated, the snail hid inside its shell and began recovering its body, and as the illustration book said, even the entrance was closed off. Lily approached Lim asking what they should do now, and Lim said they have to use what he brought from the car and showed her some nails. The bastard shell is incredibly hard, so they have to target the softest part of the outer shell. He took a nail and hammered it into the snail's shell. On the outer ring of the fire, the other hunters were hearing the sound of Lim hammering the nails into the snail's shell. They all were wondering what Lim was doing. Wang watched eagerly, questioning if what Lim told him earlier was true. A while later, Lim finished hammering the nails in the spot he wanted. He stepped back, saying it's time for the last step. In the illustration book it said once all the nail work was done, a hunter should target the center of the shell. Lim activated his strongest attack, lightning fist, and attacked the center of the snail's shell. There was some recoil from his attack, but he managed to break through. The snail was out of its shell, but Lim lost control of his body and fell to the ground. During the test, he thought using the lightning fist 2 times a day would be too much, but he never expected this much recoil. His body was too weak to use any proper techniques. Lily quickly ran to his body asking if he was okay. She kicked him over and asked if he got electrocuted. Lim angrily told her she is supposed to help him in situations like this. She helped him up asking if he wanted her to get rid of the wall of fire now. Lim told her to keep it up for a bit longer. They worked hard for the kill, so they had to collect their loot. She helped bring him to the snail and Lim began cutting it into little pieces to carry. He told her the snail's meat is very soft and has a lot of nutrition. Lily was excited. She expected Lim to make a delicious meal once they were done. Lim smiled menacingly. Lily didn't know she was helping him collect nutritious meat for Mana stew. He continued to collect as much meat from the snail as he could. But he received word from Bang Woohyuk, the leader of Team 2 of the White House Guild, that they were going to enter the Wall of Fire to help out. Lim told them to wait, saying they should enter after he released the Wall of Fire. He began to cut the snail apart quickly, looking for the most important loot. Bang asked Lim if it wasn't difficult to face the snail alone. He told Lim not to push himself too much since it was his first day. Lim found what he was looking for and he told Lily to release the Wall of Fire. Bang and his team quickly approached Lim asking if he caught the snail by himself. Lim put on an act saying he fought with his life on the line and he got lucky. However, Jang and the other team leaders from earlier thought what Lim was saying was nonsense. Jang questioned how Lim was able to defeat the snail by himself when every other guild's team was struggling against its tentacles. Lim continued his act and asked Bang if he could leave the cleanup to him. Bang told Lim he had nothing to worry about and said his team would take over. Bang told Lim if his injuries were that severe then he should go to the guild and receive treatment. Lim recalled what Beak told him and says he would think about his other options first. Lim and Lily made their way back to the contamination control area, and later that night Lily told Lim she was hungry and tired. Lim told Lily she did well today, and plated boxes of chicken in front of her. He told her to eat as much as she wanted today. Lily pinched herself. She couldn't believe she wasn't dreaming. She quickly grabbed 2 drumsticks and said she wants to catch a giant snail again. Lim poured himself a glass of beer, and after drinking half the glass he says, "Fuck, this taste is what I live for." Lily noticed that Lim says fuck every time they ate something, so she also said fuck out loud. This surprised Lim. He heard that adults shouldn't speak recklessly in front of kids, but he never had to worry about that before. He told Lily that fuck was a bad word, so she shouldn't be using it. Lily asked Lim why she shouldn't use it when he was using it. Lim told her because it's a bad word, and she asked him why he was using a bad word while they were eating chicken. The two of them continued to argue through the night. The next day Lim began his morning by using the Great Sea Mind technique, and after using the technique for a while his head began to hurt. However, this is to be expected after he spent his evening drinking. The Great Sea Mind technique worked like an emergency aid, so she shouldn't push himself in the meantime. A while later Lim finally answered Beak's call. She angrily asked him why he hadn't been picking up the phone. Lim told her his muscles were too sore because he pushed himself too hard yesterday. Beak apologized and asked Lim if he was feeling better now. He says he was feeling better than yesterday and asked Beak if she needed something. Beak told him she was planning to take over the hiring of Team 7's members, but wanted to hear his opinion first. It takes a lot of people to run a team. There was the filming equipment support, medical team who are deployed on site, operators who relay the situation from the control room, and the secretaries who handle the team's schedule and paperwork. The members greatly affect the performance of a team. Lim told Beak he didn't mind her taking over, and he asked her to choose people she thought would be suitable. After all, Beak had an eye for people. The compliment made Beak happy and she asked Lim if he wanted to continue the conversation over lunch. Lim didn't know how to respond. He told Beak that there was a hunter he wanted to recruit. He asked Beak if she could reach out to Wang from the Blackhound Guild. After his talk with Beak, Lim received a call from Changsu, who told him to take 3 days off. Lim told Changsu that he should be fine to return to work, however Changsu refused. He told Lim that Beak reported everything to him and said she shouldn't be eager to work yet because his team couldn't carry out missions until he recruited other members. Lim didn't mind taking a few days off. Changsu told Lim to rest well since he is the future of the White House Guild. Changsu asked Lim to have a sparring match with him after he had rested fully. Lim quickly hung up on him saying he would do his best to rest. Lily approached Lim asking if there was any chicken she could eat. Lim smiled menacingly and says he would make her something even tastier than chicken. Unlike his last meal, this is made from fresh and delicious ingredients, with a soft texture from the snail meat, and even the core from the snail's heart. It was specially made Mana health food. The soup's name was the snail meat soup from hell. He told Lily that he was done, and said even though the color looks weird, it's something healthy for the both of them. Lily acted like she was still full from eating all that chicken before. Lim says it was a shame. He told her that even though the soup looked repulsive, it was really delicious and filled with snail meat. And since she isn't hungry, he would eat all of it. Afterwards, he grabbed the pot of soup, and Lily stopped him, saying she thinks she had room for a little bit. Lim smiled menacingly and said, "You definitely said you weren't eating." A while later, they finished the snail meat soup from hell, but Lily almost died. She says Lim ruined all the happiness she had yesterday. Lim told her not to be heartbroken and say the world is full of many tasty foods she could enjoy. But after the trick he pulled, Lily couldn't trust Lim anymore. Lim told her they were going to have pork belly for dinner. She asked what pork belly was, and he says it's a meat more expensive than chicken. Lily says pork belly might make life worth living. Hearing Lily talk, Lim began to wonder where she was learning to say things like this. Lim said for them to be able to eat tasty food, they will need to work on digestion first. He asked Lily to follow him and say they are going on a treasure hunt. The monsters that survived during the first gate have formed their own territories, and among them is an orc tribe. The orc tribe had a relic from a different dimension that they were guarding. Lim observed the relic from the outskirts of the orc tribe's territory. Before he regressed, an expedition team found the orc's relic and took it. But this time he will snatch it first and use it to the fullest. From what he recalled in his previous life, the orc tribe had around 200 orcs. Thanks to the snail's core, his body was able to recover, but there's still too many orcs for him to handle. Lim told Lily that he was going inside the orc's camp first, and said she should use her fire ability when he sends a signal. Lily looked around, questioning what Lim planned to use for the signal. Lim pointed to a side of the orc camp wall and told Lily to light up the entrance with fire if one of the torches fell after he entered the camp. He told her if she gets distracted and misses his signal, they will lose the treasure and wouldn't be able to enjoy pork belly for dinner. Both Lily and Lim activated the stealth skill. Lily stayed hidden on a cliff while Lim entered the orc's camp. Unless there were stronger enemies in the camp, there shouldn't be anything that could detect him, so he went close to the statue to gather more information. He learned that there were about 10 orcs guarding the statue, and if he was just 10 he might be able to do it alone. He took out his daggers, getting ready to go in, but stopped after seeing the mutant orc tribe leader. In the past, the orc tribe leader showed a ridiculous amount of power against the expedition team. He was dangerous, so Lim went through with his first plan. He picked up a rock and threw it at one of the trokas, knocking it down. Lily noticed the signal and blocked the exit with fire. The orc tribe leader signaled for the other orcs to put out the fire, so Lim planned on using this opportunity to destroy the statue. However, the orc tribe leader suddenly appeared behind him. Lim ran away, questioning if the orc tribe leader noticed him. He quickly ran out of the orc camp. Lily saw Lim running and asked if he got caught. Lim turned to her and said she should be running too. After running for a while, the orcs lost them. Lily looked around and said she knew where they were. Lim asked her if she had been here before. She pointed out a cave, saying that's where she came from after crossing the gate. Said more men with the same tattoos as the ones who cornered her were in the cave too. They tried to catch her, so she ran away. Lim began to wonder if the Red Snake group was using the cave as their hideout. He questioned why they decided to settle so close to the orc tribe. He patted Lily on the head and said he was proud of her. If he used this opportunity right, he could reap great rewards. He told Lily that they should drop by her old friend. However, Lily refused, saying she didn't want to enter the cave. Lim told her to hide in the bushes. He handed her a walkie-talkie and told her to push one of the buttons if something happens. He activated his stealth skill and entered the cave. He knows that the Red Snake isn't a small group. Judging from the security, he guessed this was one of their hideouts, but he really couldn't understand why they chose a place next to the orc tribe. He made his way into a room and saw 2 men working with lab equipment. He noticed one of the men holding a white powder and questioned if it was serpent. Serpent is a drug made from plants of another world. Its powerful addictiveness caused countless people to die or become disabled in his previous life. The police spent several years investigating the drug, but no progress was made. Lim couldn't believe the origin of the drug was in this cave. While some of the men worked with the lab equipment, others with guns ordered them to hurry up or else they would be killed. Lim made his way through the lab doing a head count. There were about 100 Red Snake members armed with guns, and about 30 workers who manufacture the drug. A bag of serpent is worth about 50 grand, and from the looks of it there was about $100 billion worth of serpent in this hideout. Lim's attention was drawn to a man in suit talking to one of the guards. The businessman was shouting at the guard for missing the daily quota. The guard explained that they were behind because one of the workers died. Lim was happy he came across the cave before serpent became a problem like his previous life. He turned off the power in the cave, and in the confusion he grabbed the supply of serpent. He made his way and called out to Lily. Lily sprung from the bushes and asked Lim if it was over. Lim told Lily it was just beginning and asked her to get in the box of serpent. Lily got in the box, but before they left they were noticed by the guards. The guards opened fire and chased after Lim. Lim led the guards to the orc camp and told Lily to get out of the box. After she jumped out, Lim threw the box of serpent into the orcs' camp. The guards turned to their commander asking what they should do now. He told them that dealing with the orc has become their #1 priority. Lim and Lily activated the stealth skill and moved away from the scene. The guards opened fire on the orcs, shooting some down. However, their bullets were not able to penetrate the skin of the orc tribe leader. The orc tribe leader approached the guards one by one, cutting them down. On a cliff, Lily and Lim observed the battle. Lily asked Lim if he knows when the battle will end and said she's hungry. Lim told her to wait. It wasn't often things go this smoothly for him, and a while later the battle was almost over and Lim was questioning if he should start cleaning up. The orc tribe leader defeated the commander of the guard and let out a battle cry to signal to the other orcs of his victorious battle. Lim appeared behind the orc tribe leader and thanked him for taking care of his trash. Then he killed the orc tribe leader. The other orcs were frozen in fear. Now that the chieftain had been dealt with, the rest weren't much trouble. In fear of Lim, the other orcs ran away. Lim didn't chase after them because he knows that without their chieftain they all will die soon. He went back to the statue and began breaking it apart. A few minutes later he found the Guardian's bracelet, the relic he was looking for. The bracelet is a relic that can boost the wearer's condition and help them with recovery. If mana is imputed into the bracelet, I can also cast a protective barrier, and when the two bracelets are together the effects increase. Like the information says, the bracelets adjust to the wearer's wrist, meaning it wouldn't be difficult for Lim to hide it. It would also help him recover mana. The relic was living up to its name. Lim called Lily over and he gave her one of the bracelets. He told her that the bracelets had protective magic on it, and it would protect her in case he isn't there. When Lily gets stronger he wouldn't have to worry about protecting her, but for now she is still weak. So the bracelet was perfect for her, and it also had location tracking, which Lim thought was perfect because he had a safety net. Lim told Lily can leave after he took a look at the cave one more time. Lily was shocked and she asked Lim why he wanted to enter the cave again. Lim says he would tell her later and asked her to burn the entire orc village down. Lily asked Lim if he would take her to eat if she burnt the village down. Lim told her no, but said the food would taste better. With newfound motivation, Lily activated a giant fireball spell, burning the entire village down in one attack. Lim realized that he would be in trouble if he hadn't introduced Lily to chicken. Lim entered the cave again, but this time without his stealth skill. The guards that were left behind quickly noticed him and opened fire. Lim decided to test out his new relic. He activated a shield and instructed Lily to pay close attention. He told her that this is the special ability of the bracelet, and said if she gets used to using it she would be able to change the shape of the shield. Lily activated the shield in one try and threw it at a group of guards, shocking Lim. Seeing their power, one of the guards approached Lim and knelt before him and Lily, asking to be spared. He told them that he would come clean about everything he knows about the organization. Lim smiled menacingly and told the guard he didn't need information about the organization and asked him to bring him to the safes. 1 hour later, Lim and Lily exited the cave with a bag full of goodies, and Lily lit the cave on fire. As Lim expected of a secret organization hideout, there were a lot of useful things for him to take. Before they left the cave, Lim told Lily to trap the guards in a shield. He told her to release the shield after the explosions. Lily asked Lim what they should do if the guards tried to run away. Lim told her not to worry and said the guards would have nowhere to go even if they ran away. There were approximately 35 remaining Red Snake members. They're desperate to live in their own way, so Lim didn't plan to kill them. However, he wouldn't make things comfortable for them either, since they were contributing to the creation of Serpent. Lim called out to one of the guards saying, "Suradiok, follow me." The guard, who had been beaten up earlier for being talkative, asked Lim why he had to be a Suradiok. Lim told the guard that he reminded him of Suradiok and asked him to follow Lily back to the contamination control area. He told the other guards to turn themselves in at the control post. The guards complained, asking Lim if he wasn't going to release them too. Lim told them to shut up. He asked them if they thought they would get a pass from what they were doing, and if they continued to complain he would hit them until they wished they had turned themselves in. Later at the control post, the policemen were confused because the guards were turning themselves in for manufacturing Serpent. Lim was watching from afar. The guards will be taken to the police station where they would likely make a statement about him and Lily. However, this is what he hoped for because he wanted the statements to reach someone. He left the station quickly so he could go buy Lily something delicious. Meanwhile, Lily and Suradiok arrived at the tent. Lily began throwing a tantrum saying she was hungry. Suradiok started crying saying he doesn't understand what Lily is saying. When Lin returned to the contamination control area, Lily confronted him asking about the delicious food he promised. Lim showed her a bag saying he was late because he was buying the delicious food. Lily grabbed the bag saying it doesn't smell delicious. The bag felt mushy, so she asked Lim if he was trying to trick her with snail meat again. Lim told her not to worry. He called Suridiok and told him to prepare the meat. Suridiok cooked 2 pork belly pieces to perfection with grilled garlic and some seasoned green onions. Then he wrapped it up in sesame leaf and a piece of lettuce. Lily had a taste and she couldn't believe how good it tasted. Lim told her to calm down because she was spitting all over the food. 4 days passed by quickly and it was time for Lim and Lily to return to work. In those 4 days Lim bought the land near his tent with the guild contract money. And Suridiok, who he brought back to the tent because he thought he would be useful, is busy building a log house. Suridiok says he has worked every kind of job that's out there, and thanks to Lim he is finding a new path in life, so he will straighten up and live as a hard-working person from now on. Lim says okay and told Suridiok to do his best working for free in the next 3 years. Also he made Suridiok an eunuch. Basically Suridiok's little buddy doesn't work anymore. Lim hid a blood vessel in his special parts to make sure he won't run away. As long as Suridiok is blind when it comes to martial arts he won't be able to undo it, so it's a guarantee he won't run away. Lim plans to use Suridiok as an extra hand for the next 3 years, then send him off with a bit of money. In the present, inside the White House Guild office, Beak approached Lim and says she has been appointed as the temporary assistant of Team 7. She said Team 7 is a new team so they need an experienced person. Lim asked her if she was sure this arrangement would be temporary. Beak said of course, and she told Lim that she is too busy to be the permanent assistant of Team 7. Beak handed him a big file of documents, saying Team 7's official mission will start tomorrow, but today all Lim needs to do is memorize the stuff in the document. Lim grabbed the documents, questioning if he should have actually rested instead of taking on the orcs. Lim quickly looked over the first page of the documents, and he asked Beak why his team was assigned a gate destruction mission when his contract has a clause that says he could refuse long-term missions. Beak says the mission was sent from the government a few days ago. She explained that 4 guilds will be participating and the estimated time to clear the dungeon is 2 days. The White House Guilds needs a team to represent them and Team 7 is the only available team at the moment. Lim still didn't want to take on the mission because he knows the government's estimations are unreliable. Monster gates can be classified into 2 types. The first is Class A type dungeons, where the gate disappears on its own after spilling out monsters. Class A types dungeons can be dealt with just by killing the monsters. The second is Class B type dungeons, where the gate doesn't disappear even after spilling out monsters. The gate stays even when no monsters are coming out of the gate. In this case, someone needs to head inside the gate and kill all the monsters, and destroy the core to return, and usually missions to take care of B-type gates are called gate destruction missions. Lim continued to look through the gate destruction mission documents and he came across a photo of a place that seemed familiar. He questioned if the photo was of the place where one of the most catastrophic gates appeared. In his previous life it was called the Maze of the Fallen Spirit. When he was an instructor back then he always mentioned this place because of its infamous reputation. And if he would have taken part in the mission back then there is no doubt he would have died. Beak recalled Lim saying he had some problems with another guild some time ago. She said she could pass the mission on to that guild if there was a problem, however Lim said Team 7 would handle the mission. A while later, inside a car, Beak told Lim to stay calm no matter what. Lim asked Beak if she thought he was the type to throw a tantrum or something, and Beak said yes. Lim looked out the car window. In order for him to clear this gate he needs a strong tanker, and since Wang Guho's recruiting is taking longer than expected because of the contract cancellation fees, he has to go get him himself. They arrived at the Blackhound Guild building. The driver got out of the car and lowered his head. He told Lim to take care. Lim told the driver not to do something like this again. He said he was grateful to him for just driving him around. As they walked towards the Blackhound Guild building, Beak told Lim that what he said just now was cool. Lim thanked her and said they need to focus on the job. Upright and kind people make Lim uncomfortable and awkward. He would be more comfortable with aggressive and rude bastards, for example the guys from the Blackhound Guild. At the door to the Blackhound Guild building, Lim and the others were greeted by Kim Hyun-T, Wang Guho, and Jang. They brought Lim and the others to a meeting room. Hyun-T says he knows Beak wants to recruit Wang to the White House Guild, but says Wang is a precious talent to the Blackhound Guild. Lim took a sip of his coffee. He knows that Hyun-T is the guildmaster's little cousin and the one who takes care of the Blackhound Guild's dirty work. He was expecting him to make an outrageous demand for annulling the contract. Beak told Hyun-T that the White House Guild is aware of the Blackhound Guild's stand on this matter, but paying the 5 billion for annulment compensation is too much. Hyun-T interrupted her and said it's no longer 5 billion. He informed her that Wang renewed his contract with the Blackhound Guild this morning, and according to the renewed contract the cancellation fee will be $10 billion. Lim knows Hyun-T is provoking them on purpose. He wants them to cause a scene because he is probably recording them in secret. Lim got up from the table and he told Beak that they should head back. Beak is the guild master's daughter and someone who could be easily manipulated. As Lim and the others made their way towards the door, hideout pulled Wang closer, saying Lim must not need Wang that much. He asked them to contact him if they changed their minds. He also added that Lily seemed to like the cake they provided and said Lim might want to take her to the hospital on the way back, because the cake's been expired for a while now. Lim turned around and slapped hideout unconscious. Jang stood up from his chair and asked Lim if he was crazy. He got ready to attack, but Lim quickly dealt with him as well. The other Blackhound Guild hunters rushed to the scene questioning what was happening. After seeing Jang and hideout on the ground, they took out their weapons and prepared to attack. For their own good, Lim advised them not to attack him. He asked them if they were stronger than a Blackhound team leader. He told them not to try something useless and call their guild master. If they wanted him to fall for their little provocation, he would. Beak approached Lim saying he shouldn't have done that even if they deserved it. Lim said he knows, and he asked Beak why she looked happy he did it though. Lily asked Lim why he beat up Jang and hideout. Lim told her not to worry about it. He told Lily not to eat things from strangers, and said from now on he will have Suridiok pack her a lunch box. Hideout might have lied about the cake, but that doesn't matter now. He approached Wang and told him that they needed to talk later. Suddenly the room was filled with murderous intent. Lim knew that the Blackhound Guild Master was approaching. Demon King Qin Tijin, one of the first to be awakened, entered the meeting room, asking if Lim called for him. He demanded an explanation from Lim of what happened in the meeting room. Lim smiled. He knows Tijin was acting like he didn't know anything after watching everything through the cameras. Lim says he would tell Tijin everything, and in return he wanted him to let the others go. Tijin was impressed with Lim's loyalty. He says if he took full responsibility then he would let the others go. Lim turned to Lily and he asked her to follow Beak back to the White House Guild. Lily asked Lim if she should burn the entire place down. Lim grabbed her left cheek and said she shouldn't be so reckless. He told her that if she ever plays with fire without his permission, he would ban fried chicken forever. After Beak and Lily left, Tijin brought Lim into his office. After sitting down, Lim quickly asked Tijin what he wanted from him. Lim impressed Tijin further. He reached into his shirt and pulled out some documents and laid it in front of Lim. He asked Lim to work for him. Lim looked at the papers, questioning if this was a scouting proposal. He said to take him from the White House Guild, Tijin will need to pay a hefty amount for the cancellation fee. Tijin told Lim that he doesn't want him to leave the White House Guild. In fact, he could continue working for them. He just wants Lim to relay some information to him regularly. Tijin promised Lim that he would be paid handsomely. He told him that if he looked at the contract, he would see that it's not a bad offer. Lim asked Tijin what he would do if he refused. Tijin threatened Lim, saying if he refuses he will have to pay for the ruckus he caused here, and he might end up losing an arm or two. Later, Changsu was in front of the Blackhound Guild building screaming at the top of his lungs, demanding Tijin let Lim go. He says he will give them to the count of 3, and if they don't release Lim he will barge into the building and get Lim himself. He started counting and Lim interrupted him, questioning what he was doing here. Changsu was confused. He told Lim that Beak informed him that the Blackhound Guild was holding him captive. Lim said he resolved it by apologizing from the bottom of his heart, and surprisingly they accepted his apology. It seemed like his sincerity got to them because they even gave him presents. In a flashback, we learned that Lim threatened to expose Tijin's intimate relationship with his sister-in-law. He told Tijin that if he wanted to keep that relationship concealed, he should consider his propositions. First, he asked Tijin to hand Wang over without a termination fee. He wrote the additional fees for his discretion on a piece of paper and he handed it to Tijin. Before he regressed, Tijin engaged in an affair with his cousin's wife for a decade. Eventually, he was caught and both his cousin and his wife tragically took their own lives. And Tijin retired due to the shock. Lim knows Tijin will want him to keep his mouth shut no matter what. In the present, inside the White House Guild building, Changsu says Tijin is a cunning bastard, so there's no way he would let Lim go so easily. He asked Lim to be honest, saying he would go confront him right now. Beak asked Changsu if there was a need to pursue this further. Changsu laughed nervously, saying he was only going to confront Tijin if they did something to Lim. Beak told him that they should be grateful nothing happened. Lim noticed that Lily seemed quieter than usual. He patted her on the head, saying they don't have to play with fire to get things done. Lily sadly told Lim that she was hungry, which confused him. Beak informed him that the atmosphere wasn't great after he left. Lim patted Lily on the head again, saying they will have chicken for dinner tonight. Lily aside, if Changsu and Beak didn't care about him they wouldn't have come to save him, so he was glad he decided to join the White House Guild. The next day at the contamination control area, Wang arrived. He apologized to Lim about what happened yesterday, saying the Hyonate begged him to renew the contract, so he had no choice. Lim pointed at a chair, saying he should sit down. After Wang sat down, Lim told him that the documents were taken care of yesterday, so starting now he is Team 7's tanker. Wang grew up in an orphanage. He is introverted and acts like he's on thin ice around people. Because of that, he was treated as a pushover in the Blackhound Guild. And he died when the first disaster struck. Wang asked Lim why someone as strong as him would choose a tanker as useless as him. and Lim responded saying he needed him. Wang showed Lin his special ability saying it was as useless as he is. Lim grabbed Wang by the shoulders saying he should stay still. The moving fortress Jiam Min Chol, a decade from now, he will rise as a supernatural hero revered by all. Wang has the same petrification ability as Jiam Min Chial. In the past, Lim came across rock sculptures made by Jiam Min Chial in the early days of his career. Wang's body is even harder than those sculptures. After checking it in person, Lim was more confident that Wang has a greater petrification ability than Jiam Min Chial. He told Wang that if he gave him 6 months he would turn him into the greatest tanker in Seoul. Wang replied saying what Lim was saying doesn't make sense. Lim told Wang that since he was a useless tank now he will just have to make him talented enough. Wang was moved and in his eyes Lim was like an angel. Suradiok informed Lim that he finished preparing the food, and Lim asked him to bring the entire pot so they could enjoy. Suradiok plated the mana food in front of them, and Lim told them to dig in. He says that each person has to finish 3 bowls, even Suradiok. 2 days later at a monster hunting site, Wang was about to be bitten by a white lion monster. Lim stepped in and defended Wang from the monster's attack. Afterwards he confronted Wang asking how a tanker can be scared of monsters. Wang apologized, and Lim told him that if he was sorry he should get back to the front lines. Wang ran at another white lion monster and Lim shouted orders from the sidelines. Wang had 3 bowls of mana nutritional food for 2 days. Then Lim made him train 5 times and forced him to eat 5 meals a day. The goal of his training was to increase his petrification. Wang grabbed a hold of the monster and the monster began to attack him. Lim told him to hold onto the monster for 1 minute no matter what, and said if he can't do it he will be forced to eat 6 plates of mana nutritional food. The more resilient a person is, the more they can handle crises. Therefore Lim wanted to build Wang's resilience by getting him used to harsh situations. This method is a scientific training method that has been proven in research papers. Lim turned to Lily saying it was going to be her turn soon. However, Lily refused. She told Lim that she wouldn't do what he says. He always makes her eat tasteless food, and he doesn't buy her a lot of chicken. Lim told her that tonight's dinner will be chicken, and she quickly rushed at the monster with her fire ability. Lily burnt the monster to a crisp. Lim told her that she should get her fire ability under control, and if she couldn't, no more chicken. She begged him saying it wasn't fair. Wang was amazed. Both Lim and Lily are strong enough to take on monsters by themselves. Compared to them, he is useless. Lim called into the control room asking them to find the location of the other monsters. There were a total of 8 one-horned white lions that appeared through the gate 20 minutes ago, and he needs to catch 1 more to be a test subject. The control team informed him that there was a monster at 7 o'clock from his location. However, the warrior guild is closer to the target. Lim and the others started heading in the direction of the white lion. He asked the control team for a detailed distance difference from the monster between him and the warrior guild. The control team informed him that he was 2 kilometers away, and the warrior guild was 1 kilometer away. Lim turned to Lily and he told her that he was going to go ahead. He started heading toward the monster at full speed. While he trained Lily and Wang, Lim made sure not to neglect his own training. He also kept eating the mana nutrition meal like the others, and although he is not at the level he was at before he regressed, his strength has increased a lot. He quickly passed the warrior guild, but they noticed him and the team leader for the warrior guild ordered his ranged damage dealers to get ready to attack. If Lim doesn't get the first hit there will be problems when it comes time for loot distributions. He sped up even more and defeated the lion in 1 hit. He called into the control room saying the hunt was over. This confused the control team because their map shows he just arrived. They informed him that there was 1 more monster left and it was to the south. Lim asked Lily and Wang to take care of it. After he arrived at the monster's location, Lily approached him saying she learnt from the first monster and used her ability properly this time, so they can eat chicken for dinner. Lim says even though it wasn't perfect it's to the level where the sampling is possible so they can have chicken for dinner. The control team informed Lim that the gate is disappearing since there are no monsters left, and since the hunt was over Lim says they should get things sorted out. Chanil Nam, the on-site medical support team leader, approached Lim asking if he was hurt anywhere. Lim says he is fine and he asked Il Nam to help Lily wash her hands. Chunli Nam, the field filming support team leader, approached Lim asking him to take a look at the video they recorded of him fighting the monsters. Lim watched the video. He was stunned because it looked like a movie. Chen Xiaola, the field equipment support team leader, approached Lim asking him to raise his arms for a moment. She says she will help him take off his equipment. Beek recruited the 3 Chen siblings to the field support team that will be part of Team 7. These are people who will make a name for themselves in the future, so Lim was wondering how Beek managed to hire them. Lim turned to the others and apologized for messing up their names often. He says since they were just hired he hasn't memorized their names yet. He knows working with hunters in the field is difficult, so when they raid more dungeons he will be sure to provide them with plenty of rest and bonuses. Lim entered the car and the driver said his speech was heartwarming. Lim responded saying he is just observant with the feelings of the people in this field. He used to be someone who had to follow someone's orders without question, and later he got tired of it and left the guild. He doesn't want anyone on his team to feel that way. Later inside the White House Guild office, Beak was impressed with how good Lim was at dealing with people. She asked him if this was his second life or something. Lim told her to stop making jokes and says he heard there was a lot to talk about. Beak handed him some files saying the equipment he requested from the workshop will be completed by the morning. Lim was impressed with the White House Guild and he praised Beak for her work. She also told him that they found the person he asked them to look for. Lim was excited. He found the person he was looking for, Youngshin Jang, the only hunter in Korea with the creator trait. He asked Beak if she knows where Youngshin is right now. Beak gave Lim Youngshin Jang's location, and Lim quickly left to prepare. The next day he took Lily shopping since his plan involved Lily. He bought her brand new clothes and he told her his plan. After they left the clothing store, they began heading to the location. Lily demanded that Lim get her 4 sets of boneless chicken and large French fries or else she wouldn't go along with his plan. Lim promised and he told Lily that she would have to follow the plan exactly how he drew it up. A while later they arrived at a hair salon. After they entered the salon, a nice lady greeted them and showed Lim one of the open seats. Lim showed the lady the haircut he wanted and she told him that she needs to trim his hair before she perms it. While the lady trimmed his hair, Lim looked around and noticed that there were a lot of toys scattered around. He asked the lady about it and she said her son was the one who made all those toys. Lily called out to Lim saying she was bored. Lim told her to sit still. However, Lily began playing with the toys that were scattered around. While straining his neck, Lim looked back at Lily saying she shouldn't play with the toys since they weren't hers and she might break them easily. But Lily, who had found a plushie of a chicken, was in love. She held the chicken plushie tightly in her arms saying she didn't know chickens were this cute. The lady told Lily that since her son makes a lot of toys, she could keep the chicken plushie. Lim thanked her for the free toy and apologized on Lily's behalf. The lady told Lim it was fine since her son could make another. Curious, Lim asked for her son's age, and she told him that her son is 13 years old. Youngshin, the son of the hair salon owner, has savant syndrome, a syndrome that appears in a very small number of people with autism, where they display an extraordinary talent in a particular field. And Youngshin's field is creating. However, because of his syndrome, he avoided talking to new people, and his social skills are low. But this is an opportunity for Lim because unlike other hunters, he plans to approach Youngshin very naturally and without a contract. His first plan in befriending Youngshin is to visit this salon as frequently as possible. As the two discuss, the lady told Lim that Youngshin is probably in his room creating something right now. Lim raised his voice a little hoping Youngshin would hear him in his room. He apologized to the lady saying he hopes him and Lily aren't being too noisy. The lady told Lim not to worry since her son gets so focused that he blocks out all the noise. Since raising his voice didn't get Youngshin to come out of his room, Lim tried something else. Lim began spreading his mana throughout the building, and Youngshin quickly noticed. Youngshin came out of his room asking his mom if everything was okay. His mom was surprised because Youngshin rarely comes out of his room voluntarily. Lim was excited because seeing how Youngshin came out of his room after detecting his mana means he was the person he was looking for. He used the whispering technique and he told Lily to start the chicken plan. Lily quickly ran to Youngshin asking if he was the one who made the plushie. Youngshin was taken aback by Lily approaching him so suddenly. After calming down, he asked her if she wanted to know how he created them. Lily said yes, so he began explaining his creation process. After he was done explaining, Lily was left impressed, and she complimented him saying he was awesome, and Youngshin couldn't help but blush. Lily told Youngshin that she likes chicken, and she asked if he likes chicken too. Youngshin says he likes pizza more. Lim was listening to their conversation. He felt proud of Lily because even though her Korean was a bit clumsy, she was still trying. She was showing great passion for those 4 sets of boneless chicken. He continued to listen in and he heard Youngshin telling Lily that he had more cool things he made in his room. He asked her if she wanted to see. Youngshin's mom couldn't believe it. She never thought the day would come when her son would speak to someone he doesn't know. Lim, on the other hand, was beginning to get concerned. He wondered if Youngshin had fallen for Lily. His concerns were quickly suppressed because he was able to acquire Youngshin, who will produce superhuman equipment that will be worth hundreds of billions in the future. The next day after this encounter, Youngshin became a member of the White House Guild and he produced his first combat uniforms. A few days later, Lim and Lily made their way to the White House Guild. The uniforms that Youngshin made was nice and Lim thought using the Orc Chieftain's leather was worth it. And as they walked, he asked Lily if she liked the new uniform. Lily said she liked it since it was comfortable and it had chicken and pizza shapes on it. Youngshin had made Lily's uniform while thinking about adding their 2 favorite meals together. Inside the White House Guild building, Lim and Lily ran into Wang and Beak. Wang quickly noticed their new uniforms and he told Lim that his uniform is old and he would need a new one as well. However, Lim stopped him saying he doesn't need anything like a combat uniform. Wang seemed jealous, so Lim told him that all he needs to do is follow the schedule he made for him and gain weight. Lim took a deep breath in. He did all the preparations he could in the short deadline he was given for his next quest. Beak asked the others to follow her, and while leading them to the elevator, she told them that they need to hurry because the on-site support team said they finished preparations. At the elevator door, she stopped and asked Lim if he did something new to his hair. Lim's new haircut was a complete mess, and he now realized why he was the only customer at the hair salon. A while later at the site, Beak and the portal guard got into an exchange. The portal guard told her that another guild will be heading in before the White House Guild. This angered her. The guard asked her to calm down, saying he was told the operation order had changed since the White House Guild came late. Beak angrily questioned the guard for the person that told him that. There are a total of 4 guilds that will be participating in the joint operation. The White House Guild, the Warrior Guild, the Red Shark Guild, and the Blackhound Guild, and Lim could tell that the other 3 guilds were trying to screw with them. Lim says to Beak that there is no point in them arguing with the guard, and instead of getting more late, they should set off like they planned. Beak told Lim that even if he heads in now there wouldn't be much to get. She apologized, saying she should have made sure and confirmed their secluded time. Lim gathered the other by clapping his hands. He says they shouldn't get so disappointed, since they might pick up something even better than the other guilds. 2 hours after entering the labyrinth of corrupted souls, Beak informed Lim that the other guilds had cleared almost everything up ahead. Lim told her not to worry since dungeons and labyrinths have hidden rooms that you could stumble into. Lim had planned on bringing the other guilds with him, but they kicked away their chance. In his previous life, the initial difficulty level of the labyrinth of the corrupted soul was B class, but after a few failed subjugations in a row, the class gradually rose up, and it ended up becoming one of the worst dungeons. As they traveled through the dungeon by car, Lim noticed something up ahead and he ordered all the vehicles to stop. He got out of the car and ordered Wang to stay by the car and protect the others. Up ahead, Lim could hear the growls of what seemed to be monsters. The reason why this dungeon was named Labyrinth of Corrupted Soul is because it turned those who entered the dungeon into monsters. Seeing the members of the other guild mindlessly approach Lim like zombies, left Chen Xiaola and Chen Li Nam and the others stunned. Because of what they were wearing, Lim began to wonder if they were members of the Red Shark Guild, and from the state they were in, he guessed that they were stung by a zombie. The zombie's stinger is strong enough to pierce through combat uniforms, so Lim concluded that the hunters in front of him got stung after letting their guards down. It also looked like they separated from the other guilds, and Lim thought this was for the best. He called for Wang and he instructed him to show them the results of his training. Confused, Wang asked Lim if he wanted him to go in alone. Lim said yes, and he explained that he and the others will get infected if they get scratched by them. Wang began to protest, saying if they will get infected, so will he. Lim told Wang not to be a wimp. He smacked him in the back with mana and sent him flying towards the infected hunters. Wang quickly activated his petrified state, saying he will do his best. Lim was impressed because Wang's petrified state was a lot better than when he just started training. Before Wang could attack, Lim told him that he couldn't kill the infected people. This confused Wang and he wondered what he should do. Lim told him to figure it out himself. So Wang threw a punch at one of the infected person, and to his surprise he landed the hit, and he managed to knock the infected person out. This gave him the confidence he needed to rush at the infected Red Shark Guild members. Lily got out of the car and approached Lim. She told him that she was bored, and she asked why they couldn't just burn all the infected people. Lim told her that the infected people are guild members, so she shouldn't think about striking them down. Lim turned to the support team asking if they were good to go. Chen Li Nam had his camera set up and he told Lim that he was ready. Lim was impressed. He told Chen Li Nam that they will be using his videos to claim compensation, and he kindly asked him to record the video well. Chen Xiaola got out of the car, saying she finished preparing the insect repellent suits. Lim asked her and the others to put them on. Chanil Nam got out of the car next, saying he brought the antidote that Lim entrusted with him. With everything prepared, Lim turned his attention to the battle. It looked like Wang was reaching his limit, however he was able to take care of the Red Shark's on-site support team members that were infected. The 5 that were left are hunters and they were giving Wang trouble. Lim quickly made his way through the 5, knocking them out. This left Wang speechless because Lim did what he couldn't so easily. With this, Lim announced the situation is cleared, and he asked Wang to place the infected Red Shark Guild members in a line. Lim prepared a lot of things for this dungeon, and one of those things was an outstanding antidote to the zombie's poison. The perfect window to take the antidote is 10 minutes after being stung. When 10 minutes pass, the infected begin to behave erratically, and after half an hour they become slaves that protect the zombie's hive. Lim gave one of the Red Shark Guild members the antidote. He could clearly tell that they have been infected for more than half an hour, so he expected them to have issues with their intelligence for a while after they wake up. Lim turned to the others, asking them to step back for a moment. He plans to save the Red Shark Guild members so he can use them later. In this world, the ones with talent can focus on it and improve their strength, but for talentless people like Lim, they have to gather several skills under their belt. That's the reason why Lim traveled through dimensions in his previous life. He went to the Gaia continent, Murim, the underworld, and the Byron continent. Thanks to the magic and martial arts he learnt through his travels, he was able to survive long enough to retire. After using the antidotes on the Red Shark Guild members, Lim took out a whistle and blew it loudly. This was one of the things he picked up. It's a procedure that allows him to control low IQ animals, and because the Red Shark Guild members would be brain dead for a while, the procedure worked. He called the Red Shark Guild members to attention, saying they will be fighting alongside them. The Red Shark Guild members didn't respond because they were still brain dead. However, Lim took their silence as them agreeing, and he ordered them to start hunting the zombies. A while later, they had traveled deep inside the labyrinth. Deep inside the zombie nest, Wang called out to Lim, telling him he was able to capture the queen zombie. But he was having trouble because there were too many zombies around. Lim turned to Lily and he told her to burn the rest of the zombies quickly so they could eat lunch. Lily activated a flamethrower spell and she began burning the zombies in the nest. A while later, Lily finished cleaning up the zombies and was playing with the Red Shark Guild members. Jin Xiaola approached Lim, surprised that the Red Shark Guild members were being so cooperative. She turned to Lim, asking if he did anything sketchy to them. Lim told Jin Xiaola that the Red Shark Guild members are just expressing their gratitude to him for saving them. He says they told him themselves that they would cooperate with the White House Guild. He told the group that they should get moving since the anti-insect suit inspections were done. However, as they started moving, Lily noticed something up ahead and she stopped them. It was the Warrior Guild members and they had been infected as well, and Lily recognized one of them that harassed her and Lim during the snail dungeon. A short while later, Lim had made quick work of the Warrior Guild members and he had them under his control. As they continued through the dungeon, Lim was growing more concerned. He began to wonder why the dungeon was much easier than he thought. On day 4 of the labyrinth raid, they were having an issue with supplies, because a monster bit through their bags and ate their supplies. Lim observed the bite marks, and from there he concluded that the monsters were in a nearby location. He called Lily and he told her to bring the army. Lily blew a whistle, and an army of brain-dead hunters went through the labyrinth looking for red-eyed poisonous rats. After the rats were found, they were quickly dealt with. Lim was happy. He handed over control of the other guild's members to Lily, because things were much easier for him, and it seemed like Lily was enjoying herself. But again, Lim couldn't help but worry. It's true that he prepared many things for various situations, but everything was going too smoothly. Lim concluded that he should be more careful since the boss was still out there somewhere. Lim began to spread his mana throughout the dungeon and he was able to locate the demonic mirror bat, the Midpoint boss. The demonic mirror bat was quickly approaching, so Lim told Wang and Lily to prepare for battle, and he asked for all vehicles to move back while Wang advanced to the front line. Lim also sent in the other guild members. Since they had been brainwashed already, the demonic bat's mirror won't work on them. The demonic mirror bat shows illusions to whoever looks in its mirror, and it turns them into its personal puppets. Lim quickly realized that his team members needed to be careful. He called out to Wang, who was rushing to the front lines, and he told him not to look into the bat's mirror, but it was too late. This irritated Lim and he began cursing at Wang, Lily thinking it was a game joined in. As the battle continued, they were backed into a corner, so Lim asked Lily to block the pathway the demonic bat and its puppets were coming from. Lily quickly created a wall of fire, and Lim ordered the rest of the team to move back by at least 2 kilometers. He told them that he and Lily will gather information and join them soon. He also ordered the Red Shark Guild and the Warrior Guild members to join his crew. After they left, Lily asked Lim if she should burn everything now. Lim said usually he would give Lily the green light, but for now he asked her to get rid of the wall of fire. Lim quickly grabbed Lily and he activated the stealth skill. With this, he was able to sneak around the puppets while looking for the demonic mirror bat. After locating the bat, Lim took some knife from his pockets and he threw it at the demonic mirror bat. However, it was able to dodge. It seemed like stealth wouldn't work on the bat. The demonic bat's mirror skill activated, and the bat's mirror started glowing red, and the light quickly span over the entire room. Lim acted quickly and he covered Lily's eyes. Lim was able to determine the demonic bat's pattern, so Lim decided to retreat for now. Lim went back and met up with the others. He was greeted by the triplets who were excited to see him. Lim told them that they didn't have much time, and he quickly explained to them his plan. A little while later, Lim announced that the demonic bat was here. He quickly ordered for the retreat of the equipment team, since reinforcement was complete. The demonic bat was thrown off by the Red Shark Guild and the Warrior Guild members, who Lim had dressed in a mirror suit. Using this opportunity, Lim tried to strike the bat down, however it evaded him. Lim called out to Lily, and she used the fireball skill, but the bat was able to dodge that as well. As it teased Lily for missing her fireball spell, Lim was able to trap it using the shield from his relic. Lim quickly moved to attack, but the bat managed to break free and dodge Lim's attack. As Lim was falling to the ground, Lily provided a place for him to stand with the shield from the relic. Lim realized that he couldn't beat the bat with speed, so he had to tire it out. He began to attack the bat continuously without rest, and eventually he was able to catch the bat lacking and he beheaded it. Lim smiled menacingly, saying he will be taking the bat's mirror for himself. After they defeated the bat, they continued making their way through the labyrinth and they came across a giant gate. Lily turned to Lim asking if this was finally the end. Lim told her not to let her guard down just because they were able to get here so easily, and he ordered the Red Shark Guild and the Warrior Guild members to open the gate for them. As they opened the door, Lily asked Lim if Pushover Wang was going to be like that forever, and Lim says he planned on leaving Wang like that until they defeated the boss. He had a feeling that Wang was going to get brainwashed again if he set him free. Behind the giant gates, a skeleton monster wearing a mage cloak was waiting for them. Inside the boss room, the spirit hunter sensed Lim and the other hunters outside the door, and it prepared itself to face them. After they got the door opened, Lim blew a whistle, signaling to the other guild's members and Wang to attack. All of his free labor agents charged at the boss monster with Wang leading the charge, and Lim stood back with Lily observing the battle. Seeing how weirdly the hunters were running at him sent a shiver down the boss monster's spine. It was completely terrified of the brain-dead hunters. It backed away, but Wang activated his ability, and with a cheerful smile, he says he is determined to give the boss monster a hug. The boss monster was backed into a corner, so it attacked Wang with its giant broadsword. But Wang was able to block the monster's attack. Wang's body was shivering from the recoil of the boss monster's attack, and he says it seems the boss monster is anti-hugs. The boss monster proceeded to attack Wang repeatedly, but Wang was able to stand his ground and block all of the monster's attacks. Lim observed the battle, judging Wang's abilities. So far he was impressed since Wang was holding up, even if he was a bit shaky. The boss monster turned around, and it noticed that the hunters had surrounded him, so it activated the Spirit Bind skill, a skill that turns those close by into puppets. And suddenly a large magic circle appeared on the ground, and all of the hunters that were surrounding the boss monster were in range of the skill. Lim smiled with confidence. He was certain that the boss monster's skill wouldn't work on the hunters, and he was correct. The skill had no effect, and the brain-dead hunters continued to attack the boss monster. Lim explained that the reason the skill had no effect is because the mirror he got from defeating the demon mirror bat, and the procedure he performed on the brain-dead hunters, makes it almost impossible for them to be brainwashed. The boss monster tried to swing its broadsword to defend itself, however that proved difficult because Wang was hugging the sword. Then the boss monster used its second ability, a summoning skill. Red holes appeared on the ground, and demon monkeys jumped out of these holes. But Lim wasn't too concerned. He had already prepared for this skill. He turned to Lily and he told her that she was up. Lily was excited. She used her fire ability to quickly kill all of the demon monkeys the boss monster had summoned. The boss monster turned pale and it started sweating nervously. Lim praised Lily for her good work and he placed her in charge of dealing with the demon monkeys whenever they are summoned. The boss monster watched the two, and it sulked angrily. In a fit of rage it threw its sword at Lim and Lily, which they were easily able to dodge. Wang was still in cahoots with the sword. Lim quickly turned his attention away from Wang and the sword, and he pretended as if he didn't see anything. Lim didn't want to join the fight now, so he stayed back as the brain-dead hunter surrounded the boss monster again. He watched with his arms crossed as the boss monster exerted its energy to fight back against the brain-dead hunters, which proved difficult because the hunters were attacking in weird patterns. Lim expressed that his goal is to clear the dungeon safely and with the least amount of effort. And so with a menacing grin he says, after the brain-dead hunters tire out the boss monster, that's when he will join the battle. 1 hour later, the boss monster screamed out in exhaustion and annoyance. Seeing the visible signs of fatigue on the boss made Lim question if he should join the battle now. He blew his whistle, stopping the brain-dead hunters. Afterwards, they pulled away from the boss monster, and Lim approached the boss questioning if it had been waiting long. Then he said to the monster that he is ready to put an end to things now. The boss monster angrily started shouting insults at Lim in monster tongue. Lim couldn't understand what the monster was saying, but he was certain that it was along the lines of, "You cowardly bastard." He sighed and said he hopes the monster can be understanding. He He charged at the monster, expressing that some people don't have a choice in life but to live like this. Lim then used the ability of the mirror he got from the demon bat on the boss. He knew that the mirror wouldn't brainwash the boss, but it should lower its guard for a moment. The boss monster froze, losing all functions of his body for a moment, and in that moment Lim attacked him with the skill Thunderbolt Fist. The attack cracked the boss monster's chest plate, which revealed a small blue light. Lim's eyes widened with shock. He quickly recognized what the source of the blue light was. It was a spirit stone, a magic item that even the highest of magic stones can't compare to. The spirit stone can make miracles happen, and obtaining the spirit stone is the reason Lim entered this dungeon. After the boss monster fell down, Lim quickly made his way over and he took the spirit stone out of the boss monster's chest, and he thanked the monster for being so kind. With the spirit stone in hand, Lim couldn't hide his excitement. He stared at the spirit stone with a menacing grin. Lily approached Lim, questioning if they were done with the dungeon. But seeing Lim's face made her uncomfortable. Lim continued his admiration of the spirit stone without care. He thought the spirit stone was a great find because with it he can use reformation. If a hunter is able to complete reformation, then their body will come to a practical state to master martial arts. But this isn't what Lim is after. He thought about a vacation on the beach, and he narrated that he wants to slow down his aging and lifespan so that he can enjoy his young body years into his retirement. Lily noticed the spirit stone, and she interrupted Lim's moment by asking about the stone. She questioned if it would be something tasty to eat. Lim wanted to keep the spirit stone to himself, so he told Lily the stone isn't something they can eat. However, he couldn't hide his excitement about the stone. Lily noticed the smug look on Lim's face, and she angrily questioned why it seemed like Lim was trying to keep the spirit stone to himself. With a smile, Lim lifted the spirit stone in the air, and he started to tell Lily about the spirit stone. But suddenly the spirit stone disappeared, and the smile on Lim's face turned into a blank and confused stare. Lim dropped to his knees in despair, and he questioned why something that others will bid millions in the future for suddenly disappeared. Oblivious to what's happening, Lily questioned if Lim dropped to the ground because he was tired from the battle. Suddenly Lim heard a noise coming from his watch, and when he looked at his wrist, the hands on the watch had started to move. This made Lim angrily question if the watch runs on magical power. A few hours earlier, outside the gate, this dungeon had gathered a lot of attention, and a news reporter reported that the 4 united guilds that entered the dungeon to clear it must have been wiped out, since today marks the 10th day from when they entered. Later into the day, we see Beak with a concerned look on her face, checking the news reports on her phone. Suddenly, a voice called out to her. This person questioned why she was out here again. Beak turned her attention to this person, who is revealed to be Bang Woohyuk, the team leader of Team 2 for the White House Guild. And with a smile he tried to comfort Beak. He told her that his team will make sure Team 7 is saved. With a concerned expression, Beak explained that the other guilds have no intention of sending a rescue unit, and she knows that Team 2 is capable of clearing a rank dungeons, but she was still concerned about their safety. Bang expressed that Beak had nothing to worry about. Then he turned to the gate and he commanded his team that they should head in. As they approached, something strange started to happen at the gate, so they prepared for battle. Lim then walked out of the gate carrying Lily, and he was followed by a line of cars. Bang was happy to see Lim, and with a smile he welcomed him back. Beak quickly ran past Bang, and she gave Lim a hug. Lim was surprised, and with a look of discomfort, he questioned why Beak was giving him a hug. He reminded her that he is carrying Lily, and he asked her to let go of him. Beak ignored his question, and she asked why he took so long. Lim explained that he came across a few unfortunate circumstances that he couldn't say out loud, and he asked her to let go of him again. Beak hugged Lim tighter, and she expressed that she wouldn't let go since Lim made her worry. Seeing this, the reporters quickly started to take pictures, and they made note of Lim and Beak's relationship. Lim was starting to get annoyed. He expressed that he was exhausted, and he demanded Beak let him clock out. But still Beak continued to hug him. This made him angry, and he questioned if she wanted him to file for overtime. On the car ride back, the driver informed Lim with a pleasant smile that the country's noisy thanks to his activities. With a slightly annoyed look, Lim expressed that all the attention is only going to be a pain in the ass for him. He turned his head, and he gazed outside the window. He then questioned if it hadn't rained for the few days he was inside the dungeon. The driver said yes, and he informed Lim that for the past 10 days the weather has been clear. He guessed that Lim was asking because of the giant rainbow in the sky, and he explained that the rainbow suddenly appeared 4 days ago. Lim's gaze intensified. He knew that the rainbow isn't a natural phenomenon. It's the sign of the first great disaster. As time goes by, the rainbow's colors will start to disappear one by one, and the disappearance of every color is a signal for the start of the first great disaster, Night of the 7 Moons. Hundreds of gates will suddenly open, and monsters will pour out of the gates endlessly. In the past, Lim barely survived by holding out in a shelter, but things are different this time. He turned his attention to Lily, noting that he has the disaster of fire on his side. He clenched his fist. Not only does he have Lily on his side, he was also stronger compared to back then, and with a disappointed look he noted that he also has the fucking watch, which gained a new ability after absorbing the spirit stone. The next day, we see Lily in a red dress. She expressed that the dress is a bit tight around her stomach. Lim quickly grabbed some suspenders, and he told Lily that she could wear them instead. Lily expressed that she doesn't want to wear it because it's not pretty. This annoyed Lim, and he questioned what Lily wanted him to do about it. The White House Guild holds a party if a team returns from a dungeon safely, and Lim hadn't bought party clothes for Lily, so he informed Beak about it. This shocked Beak and she questioned if Lim only buys Lily sports attire. Lim couldn't respond, he just started sweating nervously. Beak gave Lily the red dress to wear for the party, and Lim doesn't want to be rude, so he told Lily that she should wear the dress, and if she gets uncomfortable, she could change then. Lily was impressed with this idea, and she praised Lim for his genius. Later they arrived at the White House Guild, and were welcomed by Changsu and Beak. Changsu couldn't contain himself, he hugged Lim aggressively, and he says he knew Lim would make it back alive. In pain, Lim questioned if Changsu plans to kill him. Beak turned her attention to Lily, expressing that the dress suits her well, and with a pleasant smile Lily thanked her for gifting her the dress. This impressed Beak because Lily was getting better at speaking their language. Youngshin approached, and he asked Lily if she wanted to try out the different foods together. Lily turned with an excited look, and she agreed to try the different foods with Youngshin. Beak smiled. She now realized that Youngshin has a thing for Lily, which she thought was cute. Lim looked around, and it seemed like everyone was enjoying themselves. An atmosphere like this is something he never could have imagined back in his previous life, when he worked for the Blackhound Guild. Changsu called out to Lim, and he asked him if he had any goals. This question seemed to confuse Lim, so Changsu explained that he was just curious as to what kind of goals young people have these days. He questioned if Lim had goals of becoming the strongest, or becoming a person of wealth. Lim sighed, and he expressed that his goal is to retire and live a comfortable life. He plans to save up a ton of money and build a $1 trillion house, and live the rest of his life doing whatever he wants. His answer left Wang, Beak, and Changsu stunned. Beak closed her eyes, and she expressed that Lim's goal is a lovely one. Wang also agreed, saying Lim's goal sounds peaceful, and it would be good since Lim wouldn't be putting them through training anymore. Changsu on the other hand was confused, and he questioned if Lim doesn't want to get stronger. He added that if Lim trained with him, he could get way stronger. Beak was slightly angry, and she called for her father to stop. Lim's expression suddenly got serious, and he thought about the rainbow in the sky that was counting down to the disaster. At first he planned on steering clear of the dangers he knows of in the future, but now he has the potential to get stronger and guild members he can trust, so he can't run away this time. And if running away isn't an option, he questioned if he should create a plan so he can benefit from the disaster. The scene then shifts to Lim, Wang, Lily, Changsu, and Beak at a lake. They were all excited. Changsu especially, since he wasn't expecting that there would be such a beautiful lake in a restricted area. Changsu's spirits were up thanks to him being in nature. He quickly took off his shirt and he ran into the lake. Lim observed Changsu as he made his way into the lake. He wanted to spend the week-long holiday he got without wasting it, so he asked Changsu and the others to join him. Beak called out to Lim, and in a seductive pose, she asked if he could rub sunscreen on her back, since she couldn't reach it. Lim teased her, saying she should work on her flexibility. He demonstrated and says he can reach his own back with ease. Beak was slightly embarrassed and she questioned if Lim would just apply the sunscreen for her. Lim refused. He pointed to Wang and Suradiok, saying if Beak really needs help then she should ask them for help. Beak turned her attention to Suradiok, expressing that she hasn't met him before. Suradiok was surprised. He has never met a woman who looks as good as Beak does. He quickly made his way over and with an excited smile he introduced himself. Beak tucked her hair behind her ear, and she smiled. Seeing this, Lim got irritated. He turned his attention to Suradiok, and he says if Suradiok continues to act like this he would give him a new name. He approached Suradiok, and he whispered in his ear, angrily asking if he likes the sound of bloody Suradiok. Suradiok just stood there sweating nervously. After dealing with this, Lim approached the shore of the lake waving to get Changsu's attention. He called out asking if Changsu wanted to have a swimming competition. Changsu turned with a smile, saying he would love to, since it sounds like fun. With Changsu's agreement, Lim started to explain the rules of their competition. He says the person who makes it to the other side of the lake first wins. Afterwards, he threw a rock signaling for them to start. Instantly after the rock splashed into the water, Changsu took off with blazing speed, and he was beginning to put some distance between him and Lim. Lim smiled. Just as he expected, Changsu was fast, but thanks to that he should be able to catch a big one. The gap between Changsu and Lim continued to grow, but Changsu stopped suddenly, and a giant kraken emerged from the lake. Changsu got irritated that a mere kraken interrupted their competition. He jumped out of the water and he punched the kraken. The punch injured the kraken, but Changsu wasn't finished. He continued to punch the Kraken repeatedly. Lim stared at the scene nervously sweating. Changsu was fighting a Kraken with his bare hands like it's nothing. This made him grateful that he brought Changsu along on his vacation. Changsu defeated the Kraken, and Lim approached, questioning if Changsu was okay. Lim says he wasn't expecting for a monster to suddenly appear. Changsu smiled, and he expressed that he is just glad the Kraken went after him and not the others. Changsu looked around, realizing that they had gone too far out, and he was starting to get worried about the other, so he grabbed the Kraken's body. And he said to Lim that they should head back. Lim told Changsu that he wouldn't be heading back since he wanted to look around the lake some more. With the Kraken's body in hand, Changsu swam back, expressing that Lim should make sure he returns before dinner time. Lim watched as Changsu returned. He cleared the area where the others were before he challenged Changsu to a swimming competition, so there is no chance of a monster appearing there. After Changsu was out of sight, Lim activated the shield skill, and he started swimming to the bottom of the lake. He wanted the Kraken killed because it would have been a hindrance, but now that it's gone he could search for his real goal. He doesn't know how deep he needs to go, but he knows that there is a treasure in this lake for sure. At the bottom of the lake he found a cave, and since he confirmed that the location of the treasure is here, he wanted to head back and enjoy his holiday for now and come back later with Lily. But as he started to swim back, something started to pull him inside the cave. The shield around his head broke as well, and he slowly started losing consciousness. Lim woke up inside the cave he found in the previous part by water droplets that dripped down from stalactites. He opened his eyes, still in a daze, then he looked around to gather his bearings, but he realized two things. One, something had tried to tie him up with seaweed, but the seaweed was so weak that he could break it without trying. Two, there were strange fairy-looking things in front of him. This shocked him because the fairy creatures in front of him had features of a species of fairies he knows very well. Two of the fairy creatures were panicking. They questioned if Lim was here to do something bad to them. The one in the middle confronted Lim, questioning who he was. Lim sat up, and he easily ripped the seaweeds that were wrapped around his torso. He questioned if these creatures were the ones who dragged him here. This surprised the fairies. The two that were panicking earlier were now flying around flailing their arms, expressing that Lim looks angry. The one who confronted Lim was now panicking as well, and it expressed to the others that Lim is going to kill them, so they all quickly took shelter behind a stalagmite. Lim was slightly annoyed by their chaotic nature. He told them in an annoyed tone that he wouldn't kill them. The Nostal continent is a place where magical plants, animals, and fairies inhabit. Lim worked in the Nostal continent for a few months as a tour guide in his previous life, and during his time there was a fairy only found near clean waters, called Snowy, and the creatures he just found in the cave resemble the snowy species he found when he was working as a guide in the Nostal continent. In their language, Lim asked them if they were Snowies. This surprised the Snowies, and they questioned if Lim knew of them. The Snowies were no longer panicking. Instead, they were now intrigued by Lim. They quickly moved away from the stalagmite, and while flying around Lim they proceeded to ask him multiple questions. The bombardment of questions was too much for Lim to handle, and he asked them to only ask one question at a time. Suddenly Lim's gaze intensified. In the past there was no information of fairies being found here, and it will be troublesome for him if the past is suddenly changing. He stopped the Snowies, questioning why they were here. The Snowies explained that they used to live in the lake, but their home suddenly switched into a different dimension. Lim quickly realized that they must be talking about the first gate. The Snowies continued to explain that suddenly monsters started to appear in their home, and these monsters fought and ate each other. And the strongest of all the monsters that appeared, the Kraken, ate a lot of their species, so they ran away to the bottom of the lake, where they found this cave. And they have been living here ever since. Lim crossed his arms, and in a pitied tone, he expressed that he understood it must have been hard for the Snowies. Lim also guessed that the Snowies were wiped out in his previous life, which is the reason why there was no information about them being at this lake. With a saddened expression, the Snowies told Lim that now they have no future, and because they weren't getting sunlight, they were slowly weakening. But they couldn't go out because of the Kraken. Lim interrupted them, saying the Kraken monster is dead, and that they can go outside now. However, the Snowies were in disbelief, and they told Lim that he shouldn't lie to them. Lim knows that the Snowies can decipher whether or not he is telling the truth, so he reached forth his hand, saying the Snowies can see for themselves. The Snowies used their ability, and to their surprise Lim was telling the truth. They started flying around Lim again, thankfully cheering about the fact that they can go outside again, and thanking Lim for avenging their fallen friends. The Snowies going around him in circles was starting to give Lim a headache. He angrily asked them to stop, expressing that they were giving him a headache. Then he says they should follow him so they can get out of the cave. The Snowies followed behind Lim, and they asked if they were now friends, and Lim said they were. This made them very cheerful. As they made their way through the cave, Lim thought about his original objective, which was the otherworldly item hidden in the cave. But this cave is guarded by a guardian, and he didn't think he would also meet Snowies. If it was another regressor, they would think of using the otherworldly item to make dealing with the first disaster easier. However, Lim couldn't help but think about how much money he would make if he monopolized the item, and turned this lake into a snowy theme park. The Snowies suddenly warned him about a trap, interrupting his pleasant thinking. He quickly dodged the trap. This made him grateful, since he would have had a hard time with the traps if it wasn't for the Snowies. The Snowies moved to the front, and they expressed that they were almost there. But first they stopped him, and said they wanted to say bye to their friend first. This surprised Lim, and he questioned if there was something the Snowies can be friends with in this cave. Suddenly something came to mind, and he questioned if the friend the Snowies were talking about is white, hard, and less than twice his size. With a happy smile, the Snowies told Lim that he was correct, and they questioned if Lim knew their friend. They happily expressed, with their arms flailing around, that their friend is kind and strong, and is the reason why the octopus couldn't enter the cave. Lim, now realizing that the guardian is the friend the Snowies were talking about, asked them to go say goodbye while he waited for them. But the Snowies expressed that they were already at their friend's location, and suddenly a door closed behind Lim, surprising him. And when he turned, he was faced with a small white robot. The robot recognized Lim as an intruder, and it closed off the surrounding areas. All Lim could do was watch as the robot quickly closed off his other escape paths. Afterwards, the robot ran an evaluation on Lim, and after the evaluation was complete, the robot started to transform. Lim asked the Snowies if their friend is really friendly when it's talking about removing a target. The Snowies started to sweat nervously as they watched their friend's appearance change. The robot finished transforming, and it was now prepared to commence the removal. Lim quickly activated the ability the watch gained after absorbing the spirit stone, and suddenly a metal-like exoskeleton covered his hand, and he expressed that he can finally test out this fucking watch. The robot jumped at him, and they clashed, and Lim was pushed back. He clenched his fist. There was nothing he could do against the weight class difference. However, he thought the new ability the watch gained wasn't bad, and he guessed the robot wouldn't be able to use its right side after their clash. The robot ran an evaluation on its right hand that had been damaged from its clash with Lim. It also did a re-evaluation on Lim's danger level. However, Lim broke the secret anime code of allowing your enemy to charge up. He attacked the robot, questioning if the robot thought he would wait for him to get stronger, and afterwards he quickly backed away, and the robot dropped to the ground. Lim was having trouble dealing a finishing blow because he wasn't able to put a lot of mana into the gauntlet, so he decided to retreat for now. But the robot was persistent, and it continued to chase after him. Lim turned his attention to one of the walls, and he came up with the plan to break the wall down to get away and return after getting Lily and Wang. But while he was distracted with coming up with a plan, the robot had intercepted him and was preparing to end his life. Luckily, one of the Snowies moved in front of Lim, stopping the robot's attack. The Snowies expressed to the robot that Lim is their friend. The robot ran a scan of the Snowy, and it started to malfunction since the Snowies aren't a removal target. Using this opportunity, Lim punched the robot, shocking the Snowy. The Snowy turned to Lim, questioning why he hit their friend, and with a menacing grin, Lim expressed that they should talk later. And while the robot was down, he proceeded to attack it, and the Snowies watched in a panic as Lim destroyed their friend. A short while later, the robot was defeated, and the Snowies gathered around its tattered body, crying for their friend to get better. They confronted Lim, angrily demanding he explain why he killed their friend. Lim deactivated the watch's ability, and with an annoyed tone, he explained that he was just defending himself, and he questioned if the Snowies wanted him to die. The Snowies were conflicted as they didn't want Lim to die either, since he is also their friend, so they made their way over to the robot, and they started mourning it. Lim also made his way over, and he knelt near the robot, questioning if he hadn't proven his qualifications. The robot ended the trial, and it gave Lim a key. Lim stared at the key with a menacing grin on his face. Now that he has the key, all he has to do is find the location of the otherworldly item. But suddenly the Snowies confronted him again. They flew around him angrily, expressing that they are no longer friends, since friends wouldn't kill each other. Lim, with an annoyed look, explained that the robot can be brought back to life by one of his team members. He quickly reached forth his hand so the Snowies could see that he wasn't lying. The Snowies checked, and to their surprise, Lim was telling the truth. Lim's expression changed. He now had a smile on his face. The Snowies were giving him a bit of a headache, but it wasn't too bad when he thinks of ways they can make him money. Today's technology can't recreate a golem of the Guardian's caliber, but Youngson, with his craftsmanship specialty, should be able to save the robot. Staring at the key, he thought that the robot isn't what's important right now. He looked around the makeshift battle arena the robot had created, and he noticed an open door, so he quickly made his way over, and the Snowies followed. As they walked through the door, the Snowies looked around in amazement, as this was the first time a place like this had opened, and they questioned what Lim would be looking for. Lim didn't give them much detail. He looked around while explaining that he was looking for something very important. Finally, he found what he was looking for, the liquor of life, a golden liquor with an endless amount of strong healing abilities. Lim quickly grabbed the liquor of life with a mischievous smile. He regressed to a time when potions haven't been made yet, and now he is in possession of an item that can create an infinite amount of liquor with healing properties. All he has to do is put the liquid in high-class potion bottles, and he was certain they would sell well, since the liquid tastes good as well. On the night of the first disaster, Night of the 7 Moons, if armies of monsters appear, then he will also be able to save countless hunters and civilians. As he was testing out the liquor of life, one of the Snowies approached him. The liquor smelled tasty, so it asked Lim if it could have a taste as well. Lim told the Snowies that there wasn't much left. He gave the Snowies the little that remained, expressing that they could have more once the object fills up again. After drinking the liquor of life, the Snowies started glowing. The light was so blinding that Lim had to cover his eyes, and he questioned if the liquor of life is something special to fairies. When the light disappeared, the Snowy observed its body, and it exclaimed that its body got lighter. Lim also observed the Snowy, and he noticed that it seemed to have shrunk. However, he decided to look into the details later, and since he was done with the cave, he wanted to head out. He left the cave, but as he swam closer to the surface he noticed something weird. The higher he swam, the warmer the water got. Finally, when they emerged from the water, they were faced with a giant fireball. Lim stared at the fireball, questioning why Lily was playing with fire. Lily quickly noticed Lim in the water, and with a cold tone she called out to him, questioning if it was really him. Lim shouted that it really was him. He expressed that Lily should get rid of the fireball, and he questioned if she really had a need to vaporize the entire lake. Lily deactivated her fireball, but suddenly on the shore of the lake, Lim heard Changsu calling out for him. This scared the Snowies, and they quickly submerged themselves back into the lake. And with a nervous smile, Lim finally realized that things would have been really bad for nature if he stayed down there any longer. He quickly swam over to Changsu, and afterwards he tried explaining that he was taking care of some personal things. Changsu let out a sigh of relief, and he expressed that he is just glad Lim made it back safely. With a nervous smile, he says it's a good thing he kept Lily from wiping out the entire lake. Beak and Wang quickly made their way over, questioning if Lim had been found. Changsu turned his head, and with a pleasant smile, he expressed that everyone can stop searching now. Beak quickly made her way over to Lim, and she hugged him. This surprised Lim, and to the Snowies it seemed like Lim was in danger, so they quickly jumped out of the water to defend their friend. This surprised Beak and Changsu. Changsu informed Lim that there was a monster behind him. All the chaos was starting to get to Lim. He got Beak off of him, and he asked everyone to calm down. He explained that the Snowies are his friends, and he said he will give the details about how he befriended them in a bit. Lily made her way over and she headbutted Lim in the gut, then she started throwing hands. She explained that Lim missed dinner time, so she was worried. With a saddened tone she explained that she couldn't eat because she was looking for him. Lim patted her on the head, and finally he apologized to everyone for being late. After the lake incident, Lim's vacation days quickly flew by, and he was back to his regular routine of taking care of gates. His team was assigned to an ogre gate, and they were the first to arrive, and as the monsters charged out of the gate he ordered the civilians to get to safety. Then he ordered Wang to stall the monsters. Wang quickly activated his ability, and he stood in the ogre's path. The ogres turned their attention to him, and they attacked him. However, Wang was able to take the attacks without backing down. Lim had him and the others on a routine that included 5 mana nutritious meals and hard training, and he made Wang fight on the front lines when his team was assigned a monster eradication job, like this one. Lim observed the fight closely. He then turned his attention to a stopwatch that had been timing how long Wang would last against the ogres, and to his surprise Wang was growing at a faster rate than he expected. He thought that if this growth continued, then Wang would play a big role in the upcoming disaster. Lim stopped the timer and he ordered Wang to stand down. Then he turned to Lily and he expressed that it was her turn. He told her that she had 1 minute on the clock. Lily quickly activated her fire ability, and she shot multiple fireballs at the ogres, causing a giant explosion. Wang, who was in range of the explosion, quickly shielded himself, and Lily turned to Lim, and in an excited tone, she expressed that all of the monsters were dealt with, so Lim should buy her a monster burger combo meal. Lim took a look at the stopwatch, which showed that Lily took 1 minute and 5 seconds to eliminate the monsters, and in a cold tone he told her that she missed the 1 minute mark by 5 seconds, so she wouldn't get the combo meal, only a burger. Lily dropped to her knees in despair. and suddenly Wang approached Lim, questioning if they could eat dinner together. But something else had caught Lim's attention. He noticed that Wang's shadow was acting strangely, and after realizing what it was he moved suddenly, and he attacked the monster that had hidden in Wang's shadow, killing it in one hit. Afterwards he explained to the shocked Wang that the monster he just killed was a shadow goblin, and it was likely waiting for the perfect time to ambush Wang. Wang was speechless, his eyes widened and his mouth dropped as he stared at the monster that was moments away from ending his life. Lim approached him with a serious expression on his face, and in a serious tone he questioned why Wang is having thoughts about dinner when they are in the middle of battle. He expressed that Wang should get his shit together. Wang's expression saddened, and in a saddened tone he apologized to Lim, expressing that he will just eat the nutritious meal for dinner today, and do extra training to make up for this. Lim was surprised, however he thought this side of Wang wasn't bad since it could help him grow stronger, so he accepted Wang's apology. Then he looked down at the knife he used to slay the shadow goblin. He gripped the hilt of the blade tightly with a determined expression on his face as he thought about his skills now, which were almost equal to his skills in his previous life. He turned his head towards the sky, as he can easily take care of shadow goblins, and he has lots of mana to spare. He grew more determined because if he keeps growing at this rate there is no doubt that he will quickly grow stronger than he was in his previous life. From the rainbow in the sky, Lim calculated that there are only 15 days left before the rainbow completely disappears. Lily notices that Lim was looking up to the sky, so she turned to the sky as well to see what Lim was looking at, and to her surprise the yellow color of the rainbow she saw a few days ago was now completely gone. To clear the night of the 7 moons, Lim wanted to make a few preparations. First, he needs firepower that will clear out the monsters coming out the gate. Second, a special team to destroy the core gate. Third, he wanted to set in place measures that will minimize damages to the city. And lastly, he wanted to find a way to administer the recovery and management of the wounded hunters. He has already taken care of the last one, however he still needs to get the other 3 in place. Inside the White House Guild building we see Lim, Beak, and Lily walking together. And as they made their way outside the building, Beak handed Lim some documents, and she reported that the potion shipment will start this week just like how Lim wanted. Lim started reading through the documents, and he asked Beak to continue overseeing the potion sales for him. As he read through the documents a question came to mind, and he asked Beak if the potions passed the sales of food standard. With a smile Beak expressed that Lim shouldn't worry about that, and she informed him that they won't need to promote it either since it's a guarantee hunters will be lining up. She also told him that the prices of each type had been organized, and the details were in the report. Lim read that section of the report out loud. The report read that there will be a limit to how many potions one person can buy, and the potions will be sold at a higher price to hunters. This was exactly what Lim wanted, and he praised Beak for her work. Beak smiled and she expressed that she mostly used Lim's opinion. Lim shifted the conversation. He questioned Beak about Yongsun's progress with the golem, asking if Yongsun has gotten the golem to move yet. Beak informed Lim that the robot hadn't moved yet. They made their way to Lim's car and Beak explained that the others say it's impossible to get the robot in working condition. But Yongsun was determined to get it done. The driver got out of the car and he opened the door for Lim, Beak, and Lily. As Lim entered the car he expressed that things should be fine if they leave everything to Yongsun. He was certain Yongsun would make it happen, since a chance to go to the zoo with Lily was on the line, and as he thought about this he couldn't help but smile menacingly. Inside the car Beak handed him the next paperwork he had to look at, containing information about his friends, Yang Sangti, Shin Jungcheol, and Lee Yeonju, who were with him on the day he retired in his previous life. Lim knows that the future is changing because of him, and that means there is no guarantee that his friend in his previous life would survive in this life. He took the file, and he hid it in his shirt, then he thanked Beak again for her work. And with a pleasant smile Beak questioned whether Lim needed anything else, explaining that she wanted to take care of everything before Lim goes on his 1-week vacation. Lim leaned forward to the front seat of the car, and he asked his driver, Mr. Chauffeur, how long it takes him to get to work. With a pleasant smile, Chauffeur says it takes him about 1 hour. Lim then expressed that it must be hard for Chauffeur to commit to work since he lives far away. Chauffeur still with his pleasant smile prepared to reply to Lim. However, Lim interrupted him. He told Chauffeur to move into an apartment close to the White House Guild. This shocked him, but before he could get clearance Lim turned to Beak, and he asked her to prepare an apartment under Chauffeur's name. He expressed that the apartment should be big enough that Chauffeur's entire family could live there, and he told Beak that he would be paying for it. Beak with a cheerful smile replied saying she would get it done as soon as possible. She turned her head and with a pleasant smile she thought about what a unique person Lim was. Chauffeur looked at Lim through the rear view mirror in the car, questioning why Lim was doing this. With an awkward expression Lim explained that he was only doing this for his own comfort, and he expressed that Chauffeur shouldn't worry since he has a lot of money. Chauffeur still found it hard to believe that he would be moving into a fancy apartment, and he questioned if he was dreaming or something. Lim turned his head, and he stared glaring at his reflection. He no longer has to worry about money since he started selling the potions, but he can't evacuate everyone around him. His gaze intensified as he thought about everything he has left to do before the first disaster. Sometime later, after arriving home, Lim prepared for his week-long trip with Lily, and before they could leave, Suradiok approached and with a pleasant smile, he expressed that he hopes Lim and Lily will have a nice weekend trip. Lim turned his head, and he told Suradiok that he should keep the house safe during the weekend, and Lily expressed that Suradiok shouldn't run away while they were away. Suradiok smiled. He says with how greatly Lim treats him, he wouldn't dream of running away. Sometime later, while walking through a forest, Lim and Lily came across Wang. Wang had his head lowered, and he stared at a cracked boulder with a saddened demeanor. Lim motioned his hand for Lily to be as quiet as possible, and he told Lily that they should leave since Wang was focusing on his training. Wang approached the cracked boulder and he placed both of his hands on it. He was disappointed in himself since his attack wasn't as fast as he wanted, and with a sad look on his face, he said out loud that if he doesn't get stronger, Lim would abandon him. Hearing this, Lim was a little bit worried, and he questioned if Wang was still insecure about being abandoned. However, he didn't do much about it since Wang was currently more motivated than ever. But some part of him was questioning if he should really leave Wang like this. But since he had more important things to do right now, he turned to Lily expressing that they should leave. Lily stopped him saying she wanted to show him something. She activated a shield, and using the shield they flew through the sky. Lim was impressed. He leaned forward questioning how Lily learned to do this. Lily turned and with a surprised expression, she explained that she just tried it, and it worked. She also questioned if Lim couldn't do something like this. Lim remained silent. He was slightly annoyed by Lily's monstrous talent. Sometime later they arrived at Lim's treasure trove. He saved up everything he had inside this cave. They entered the cave, and two of the Snowies from the previous part approached Lily and they exchanged high fives. As they played, the Snowy that evolved approached Lim, and it reported that nothing out of the ordinary happened during its shift. Lim praised the Snowies for their work, and he ordered them to go guard the entrance. The Snowy that drank the liquor of life became as fast as a bullet, so taking into consideration their strength, Lim gave them the job of reporting if intruders ever intrude. And of course the Snowies accepted since they thought they will be protecting a friend's goods. After the Snowies left, Lim approached his work area and Lily followed behind. As they approached, Lily looked around questioning how Lim obtained all these items. Lim told Lily that he will explain later, and he grabbed 3 items from his stash. The first was the mask of a con artist, which gathers the attention of people and changes the appearance and voice of the wearer. The next item was the sage robe, which gives the wearer an intimidating aura. The final item was a glowing staff, which was a staff made of wood that glows when infused with mana. Lim donned the robe, and Lily donned the mask. Lim was impressed with himself, and he expressed that their new looks are very convincing. Lily was surprised by Lim's new voice, and she expressed that Lim's voice suddenly became cool. But hearing her own voice weirded her out. With this, Lim was ready to commence his plan, and sometime later at a gate, Lim and Lily cancelled their stealth skill, making it seem like they stepped out of the gate. All of the hunters present took a defensive stance, questioning if they had just witnessed a human stepping out of a gate. Lim took a look around, and he was pleased with the amount of witnesses present. He glared at Lily, signaling that it was time for them to start. Then he took off his hood, and he introduced himself to the other hunters as Aximus, a magician from the Gaia continent. And he shouted saying that he came to warn the hunters of the disaster that will reach this land soon. The other hunters present were in a state of confusion. They stared at each other questioning who Lim was, and why he was speaking a language they have never heard of before. 2 hunters faced each other, questioning if Lim really did come out of the portal. Lim quietly observed the confused hunters, then suddenly he lifted his staff in the air, and as he infused mana into the staff began to glow. The staff was glowing so bright that some of the hunters had to shield their eyes from the light. A hunter with a shield made his way to the front and he took a defensive stance, and he questioned if Lim was going to attack them. Lim spoke, expressing that the hunters shouldn't be alarmed. The hunters were taken aback, and they questioned why they could suddenly understand Lim. Lim explained to the hunters that he just used translation magic, and knowing that they could now understand him, he introduced himself again as Aximus, a magician from the Gaia continent. He asked the hunters to listen carefully to what he was about to say. Then he turned his gaze to Lily and he gave the signal. Lily quickly recognized the signal, and she activated a shield that flew them into the sky. While in the air, Lim shouted that he is here to warn the people of this world. The hunters looked up in amazement. They accepted the fact that Lim was a wizard like he claimed, but questioned what he meant by warning them. Lim turned their attention to the rainbow, and he explained to them that the rainbow is the sign of doom, and once all the colors of the rainbow disappears, a calamity that opens hundreds of gates to hell will befall this world. As he was explaining, Lim lifted his hand, which Lily recognized as the second signal, so she created more shields, and she started raining down many fireballs. This really set the scene for Lim. He lifted both of his hands in the air, and in a serious tone he expressed that monsters and demons will overrun the land and the sky. Nowhere will be safe, the living will die, and the dead will rise, and to stop this disaster he explained that everyone must band together and prepare quickly before all the colors of the rainbow disappeared. The hunters, and some law enforcement that had arrived, couldn't help but watch Lim's performance unfold before their eyes. With their gaze still towards the sky and in a confused state, they questioned if the rainbow was really counting down to a disaster. Lim was getting the reaction he wanted, so he signaled for Lily to deactivate the shields and her ability, and they dropped to the ground. The special mask makes his voice sound more believable, and the sage robe gives off an aura that makes people notice him. Finally, his magic wand, which was just a glow stick, but it helped set the scene. One of the law enforcement approached Lim questioning how they can avoid this disaster, and Lim quickly got back to his acting. He lowered his head, and in a serious tone he explained to the officer that the disaster cannot be avoided. The only thing they can do is minimize the damages. Suddenly his gaze intensified, and with intensity he asked to meet the king of the world, so he could report the details to him. Law enforcement took Lim and Lily to the Blue House interrogation room, and in the long hours they waited, Lily fell asleep. Sometime later a man entered the interrogation room. This man was Ju Sang-wook, the Hunter Cooperation Team's leader. He approached the table, then he placed his briefcase on the table. Afterwards he reached into the briefcase, and while taking out some files, he expressed, in a skeptical tone, that he has never heard of anything like magicians from another dimension. Lim told Sang-wook that it's understandable that they are suspicious, but they shouldn't be since he is here to warn them of a disaster. He expressed that he is no threat since they took away his wand, and he asked to speak to the king. Sang-wook bought into Lim's acting. However, he was still suspicious. He took a seat, and in a skeptical tone he questioned how Lim can be so sure that he wasn't the king. Lim motioned his hand forward, expressing that he can read the destinies of people, but only bits of it. This left Sang-wook scratching his head in confusion. He was still suspicious, so he asked Lim if he had any proof of his abilities. Lim's body started emitting a mysterious aura, and in an ominous tone, he explained that he can't see the destinies of everyone. He can only see a bit of the course of events that will leave a mark on history or of people with great destinies. For example, Sang-wook, who isn't a king right now, but in the near future he will seek to be king. This surprised Sang-wook. He sprung from his seat questioning how Lim found this out. Lim knows because in his previous life Sang-wook ran for president, and he was also a hunter judge who did not tolerate crimes committed by hunters. His gaze intensified, and he told Sang-wook that he couldn't say anymore since that is all he can see. Sang-wook was still in a state of confusion and he didn't know how to respond. Suddenly a worker entered the interrogation room. This snapped Sang-wook out of his confusion. He turned his attention to this person, and they reported that the president wanted to meet with Lim in person. After the report, Sang-wook gave Lim his wand, and he expressed that he will take them to see the king. Lim accepted his wand with a pleasant smile, and he thanked Sang-wook. As they made their way through the Blue House, Lim made some observations. The current Blue House was rebuilt a few years ago. During the first gate, a gate appeared on top of the Blue House building, and the monsters that came out of the gate went on a rampage, and they leveled the Blue House building. As a result, the president and most of the members of parliament who were in the Blue House building at the time were killed. The chaos that resulted was only barely resolved after a new president was elected. Lim couldn't help but notice that because of its durability, the new Blue House looks like a military facility. Sang-wook suddenly stopped in front of Lim and Lily, and he announced that they had arrived. Inside the president's office, guards stood facing each other, and the president sat on his chair with a guard to his left. Sang-wook knocked on the door and they were told to enter. After Lim entered, the president introduced himself to Lim in a formal tone, and he questioned if it's really true that Lim and Lily are from another dimension. Lim bowed and he introduced himself as Aximus, a magician from the Gaia continent. Lily followed suit, and she introduced herself, but her Korean was still shaky, so Lim asked the president to excuse his assistant's clumsy translation magic. The president expressed that this wasn't a problem, and he asked them to sit in the chair in front of them. Lim and Lily approached the chairs, but before they sat down, Lim observed the chairs, and he expressed that the chairs seemed weird. The president expressed that Lim shouldn't be worried, and he explained that the chair is a device that they use for detecting lies. He says if Lim answers with a lie to any of his questions, then he will know right away. Lim took a seat comfortably, and with a confident smile he chuckled, saying the president should be the one on the chair. This took the president by surprise, and he questioned what Lim was saying with his statement. Lim explained that he was just expressing that they have nothing to hide, and since he was comfortable he asked the president to ask him the questions. The president didn't waste a single second. He quickly asked Lim if he truly came from the Gaia continent. Lim replied with a yes, and the lie detector wasn't set off. The president then asked if the story about the disaster is true, and Lim answered saying the disaster story is true, and that they came here to warn them about the disaster. He also told them to ask him most of the questions since his assistant doesn't know much about the disaster. Sometime later the questioning was done. Lily didn't understand half of the questions, and Lim trained in martial arts so he can control his breathing, pulse, and sweat, so if he wanted to lie, a lie detector test would be useless. The president stood up from his chair, and he asked the workers in the room to remove the wires that were hooked up to Lim's body, and afterwards he asked them to leave. After all of the wires were gone from their bodies, both Lim and Lily stood up. The president approached Lim, and he apologized for continuing to doubt Lim. He expressed that it's nothing personal, it's just the nature of the situation. Lim expressed that the president had nothing to worry about, since he would have done the same thing. Before Lim and Lily could leave, the president stopped them and he asked a personal question. He asked Lim if he could help him flee to the Gaia continent. This question took Lim by surprise, and he questioned if he heard correctly. With a disturbing look on his face and a panicked tone, the president expressed that it must be safe in the Gaia continent, since Lim came to another world to warn others, so Lim should take him to the Gaia continent. This angered Lim, and he questioned if a king is going to abandon his people and flee. The president was now in a state of panic. He expressed to Lim that he is not a king. He said he is just a person who happened to sit in the king's seat. He expressed that he will give Lim whatever he wants if he takes him to the Gaia continent. In a gloomy demeanor, he told Lim that he was sick of this dangerous land where he doesn't know when he is going to die. He motioned his hand towards the guard that was wearing a mask, and he expressed that he would do anything if Lim took him, his family, and this guard to the Gaia continent. Lim was taken aback. He didn't expect the president to be this type of person. He quickly grabbed Lily's hand, and in a disappointed tone he expressed that he has misjudged the president, so he will be heading back now. The president stopped Lim once more, and he reminded him that he could get anything he wanted. Lim didn't even bother to look at the president, and with his back turned he rejected the president's offer. The guard next to the president, Kim Soo-ho, the first awakened giant, took off his mask, and he crushed it in his hands. Suddenly his aura began to fill the room. Lim notices, but before he could react, Kim had already closed the distance between them. With a close-up look at Kim's face, Lim couldn't help but start giggling. This confused Kim, and he questioned why Lim was suddenly laughing. Lim replied with a question. He asked Kim how long he plans on playing this joke. He expressed that Kim must be the real king. This further surprised Kim. He deactivated his ability, questioning how Lim figured him out. Lim smiled confidently, and in a confident tone he made up some bullshit about being able to see the large star of fate that Kim has, when in reality he knows Kim was the hero who brought order to South Korea, which was in chaos after the first gate. As soon as Kim awakened his ability, he mobilized law enforcement to protect the citizens. After the presidential election, he rebuilt the Blue House and has been the president of this country for a few years. Even after that, he dedicated himself to normalization of the city and restoration of the national territory. If you are a citizen of South Korea, you can't help but know who Kim is. The scene then shifts to inside the Central Disaster Response Headquarters, where Kim introduces Lim to the leaders of the different guilds, and afterwards Lim explained everything about the first disaster. After Lim's explanation, Changsu could barely contain his excitement after hearing that there will be over 10,000 monsters. Kim Tae-jin, nicknamed Demon King, was skeptical. Han Jae-hai, nicknamed the Ice Queen, stared with a blank expression on her face, and Min Tae-woong, nicknamed the Iron Wall, was intrigued. Lim was nervous. He was in a room with the First Awakeners, a title given to the 5 strongest among the hunters who awakened first. They were the hunters who helped wipe out the monsters and stabilize South Korea's situation. But he did well to hide how nervous he was. Kim expressed to the other Awakens that he plans to declare a state of national emergency tomorrow morning, and he will do his utmost to prepare for the disaster, and he hoped the others will do the same. Tae-jin asked Kim to wait. He questioned how Kim expects them to believe such an unrealistic story. Min had a similar opinion, and he expressed that Lim looks like a scammer. They all started to bombard Kim with questions, which was beginning to annoy him, so he told them to stop, and he expressed that he was the one who verified Lim. And he explained that even if Lim is lying, then nothing bad would happen. But if Lim is telling the truth, then they could all suffer greater losses if they don't prepare. The others were slowly starting to accept the fact that they needed to prepare, however Min was still skeptical. Suddenly he moved from his chair. Lim noticed, but Min moved so fast that by the time Lim prepared to counter, Min had already grabbed hold of Lily. Lily started to skirmish in Min's hand. Min motioned his hand towards Lily's mask. He expressed that the mask has been bothering him for a while, and he asked her to stay still so he could take it off. Lily obviously refused, but this made Min question if there is a reason why Lily was wearing a mask. Min took off Lily's mask, and the mask fell to the ground. As soon as the mask was taken off, there was a big poof, and Lily was transformed into a cat. This left Min in a daze. He stared at his hands with a confused look on his face. Changsu was also surprised. He questioned if Lily wasn't a person. Lim made his way over and he picked up the mask, and with a calm expression he picked Lily up, and he placed the mask on her face. He told her to calm down, and he expressed that they made a mistake because they didn't know. Then he glared at Min, and he expressed that the Mayo people are very ashamed to show their faces to humans, which is why they always wear masks when they are with him. Lim prepared this with Lily just in case something like this happened. The cat mask changes the wearer's voice, but if the mask is removed, a magic spell is cast that turns the wearer into a cat. Lim continued to glare at Min, and he wondered what Min would do now that his deduction was wrong. Kim approached Min with an angry aura about him, and he demanded that Min apologize right now. Min was embarrassed. He approached Lily and with a pleasant smile, he apologized for taking off her mask without permission. Lily, who was still in cat form, acted like a cat. She meowed and did her best to try and scratch Min's face. Lim was happy that his plan was going according to plan, and he made a mental note that Lily was pretty good at acting like a cat. The next day, Kim declared a state of emergency on television and radio. There was some confusion after the announcement, but all the citizens adapted quickly. The military, police, hunters, and guilds immediately began large-scale military exercises. The scene then shifts to inside a dining hall, and we see Lily and Lim enjoying a meal. Sang-wook entered the dining hall, and he told Lim that he heard a rumor that he and Lily were leaving today. Lim told him that it wasn't a rumor. He explained that they have to go back in a few hours because the dimensional transfer magic was running out. Sang-wook then asked Lim if he could do him a small favor before they left. Lim, with a pleasant smile, replied saying he would be happy to help as long as it's within his power. Sang-wook turned Lim's attention to some bookshelves, and he told him that these were the books obtained as loot during the restoration of the country. He then asked Lim if he could take a look at them. Lim was left speechless, seeing that Sang-wook expressed that he knows Lim is short on time, so he just wanted him to take a quick look to see if there were any important books. Lim got up from his chair. He told Sang-wook that he will do his best even though he is not well informed. Lim started making his way through the bookshelves, and he scanned the books with his eyes. He can speak any language, but as of now he can only read the language of the Gaia continent and the martial world. And even then he is only good at reading about magic and martial arts. As he made his way through the bookshelves reading the titles of the books, one caught his attention. The Sword Emperor's Records. Lim couldn't believe it. He quickly grabbed the book off the bookshelf, and he started reading through it. The first paragraph of the book read, "I'm Nangon Yuxu, the Sword Emperor. In the martial world, I am known as the Incarnation." Lim confirmed that the language is correct. This made him question if this really was a book left by the Sword Emperor. Lim's face while reading the book concerned Sang-wook. He approached Lim questioning if something was wrong with the book. Lim wasn't sure if the book was real, but he wanted to take it back to the lake so he could take a closer look. He turned to Sang-wook, and with a serious expression on his face he told Sang-wook that it looks like the book was written by a demon. Sang-wook couldn't believe what he was hearing, but before he could get his bearings, Lim asked him if there was anything else with the book when it was found. Something like a sword. He expressed that if the book was found with a sword, then that sword will have a demon inside it, and it will control the will of the one who wields it, and harm people. Sang-wook quickly started looking through the records on his phone to check if anything was found with the book. Lim was hoping that the Emperor's heavenly sword was also found with the book, but much to his disappointment, Sang-wook informed him that the sword was not there. It is said that only the book and some old clothes were found in the collapsed cave. This ticked Lim off, but he put on an act, and he expressed that it's for the good of the public the sword was not found. Lim put the book in his garments, and he told Sang-wook that since this book is dangerous, he will take it and seal it. And since Kim is busy, he asked Sang-wook to keep it a secret. After Sang-wook left, Lim started reading through the book. The book read, "I was born as a bastard of the Nangon clan. I was born with the talent of martial arts bestowed by the heavens, but I was discriminated against for being a bastard. I couldn't even see the clan's ascending martial arts. After my mother passed away, I stole the clan's martial arts and elixir." Lim wasn't interested in this part of the book, so he started flipping through the pages. He already knew that the Sword Emperor became a master, then he lost to Tianma in the battle by a fraction of a second and disappeared. Lily had grown bored. She approached Lim questioning what he was doing. Lim turned to her, and he told her to play by herself for a while, so he can read the book until lunch. He told Lily that she could also read a book if she's that bored, but he asked her not to disturb him. Lily bolted out of the room in a fury, and as she was exiting, Lim told her to return before lunchtime if she was going out. After she left, Lim used his newfound silence to continue reading the book. However, he was starting to get annoyed, because so far it was all about the Sword Emperor's life. Lim started flipping through the pages again, and he came across a page that talked about a martial art that can break through the heavens, a martial art which contained the true teachings of the sect. And the name of this martial art is the heaven-piercing divine art. Lim read the page with a puzzled look on his face. He was sure he found the godly art of breaking the sky, but he questioned why there was so much nonsense attached to the teaching. Now that he has found the main part he was looking for, Lim decided to truly focus, and luckily the teachings were explained in a way that even a monkey can understand. And if somehow you couldn't understand, then you could always read it again. Lim placed the book down on the ground, and he decided to give the teachings a try. He sat cross-legged in a meditation pose, and he started flowing his mana through his mana circuits. The level of inner power can be divided into three main categories. The first is accumulation, how much internal energy is stored in your danshin. The second is stability, how stable the internal energy that is operated in the body. And finally emission, how quickly the internal energy is emitted to the outside. If the Diha teachings that Lim has mainly been focusing on only pursued stability, then the godly art of breaking the sky has a perfect harmony of the three aspects. It was truly a perfect peerless martial art. As he was practicing, Lim began to understand why martial artists in his previous life would stake their lives on ascending martial arts. Since he was exhausted, he decided to stop here with the teachings for today. He checked the time, and he realized that it had passed 12 already. This made him question why Lily wasn't back yet. Suddenly, he started hearing some commotion outside. He quickly opened the doors to the hall he was staying at, and he witnessed the beginnings of a gate opening. Suddenly, a minotaur appeared out of the gate, and it quickly turned to the workers. The minotaur swung its morning star weapon at the workers, and luckily Lim was able to use a shield to protect them in time. He quickly got in between the minotaur and the workers, and he told the workers to stay inside the barrier until other people arrive. He expressed to them that the magic would protect them. Afterwards, he turned towards the minotaur. He was excited to test out the power of the godly art of breaking the sky that he was practicing. The minotaur rushed at Lim, and Lim, who didn't want the workers to question his mage status, expressed out loud that if he used magic, the palace could collapse. So he will use his body to attack instead. The minotaur swung the morning star at Lim, but Lim was able to dodge. For a moment it seemed like Lim disappeared, and he reappeared above the minotaur with his staff lifted up in the air. He punched the minotaur, and he sent it flying backwards. Lim was taken aback, and as the minotaur rushed at him again, he questioned why it was so weak, and if this monster was really a minotaur. Again he dodged the minotaur's attack, and as the monster was looking for him in the sky, he appeared below it, and he charged up and delivered a punch to the minotaur's gut. Lim started grinning. It wasn't that the minotaur was weak, it's that he had gotten stronger. This motivated him to learn the other teachings of the godly art of breaking the sky quickly. He proceeded to use the minotaur as a punching bag, and a short while later Lily came in flying on a shield. She called out to Lim to get his attention, and after she was on the ground, Lim asked her where she was, and Lily explained that she was eating with her friend. This confused Lim, and he asked her if she really made a friend in that short time. Before Lily could reply, they were interrupted by the appearance of multiple minotaurs. Lim expressed that he didn't want to cause damage to the palace, but there were too many minotaurs that appeared. As Lim spoke, Lily realized that Lim was sending a signal for her to use her fire ability. Both Lim and Lily lifted their hands in the air, and Lim acted like he was casting a fire rain spell. The ability was activated, and it burnt the minotaurs to a crisp. Sang-wook, who had arrived, and the other workers watched as the minotaurs were burning. The spell mesmerized them, and in that instant it was decided that in the distant future a statue of the great sage will be erected in the Gwangwalmun Square. Sometime later we see Kim thanking Lim for doing them this favor. He expressed that he will never forget it. Lim told him that he only did what he should have done, and he asked him to do his best to stop the upcoming disaster. Kim motioned for the guard that was beside him to come. The guard approached, and he opened the briefcase he was carrying in his hand in front of Lim, revealing high-grade magic stones. Kim expressed that even though it's not much, he wanted Lim to accept this as their gratitude. Lim was shocked. He refused, saying he couldn't accept such a thing. However, Kim convinced him. He told Lim that they couldn't send him away after what he had done for them. Lim's mouth began to drool. He thanked Kim, and in his head he questioned how many high-grade magic stones were in the briefcase. After getting his act together, Lim expressed that they couldn't stay here any longer. He activated a shield below him and Lily. The shield appeared like a portal, and he told Kim and the others that they will be leaving now. Lily waved at Han Jai-hai, and she expressed that she hoped to see her again, and Han Jai-hai waved back with a pleasant smile on her face. And before they finally disappeared, Lim expressed with a pleasant smile that he hopes they will stay safe. Some time later they came home, and they started calling out to Suridiok. Lim called out questioning if Suridiok had taken care of the house, and Lily called out expressing that she had been craving the food Suridiok makes. Suridiok hurried out of a tent with tears running down his face. He asked Lim where he had been, and he expressed that something terrible had happened. Lim in a calm tone asked questions about what happened. Suridiok in a panicked tone told Lim that if all the rainbows floating in the sky disappear, a disaster will befall them, and the president informed the public that hundreds of gates will appear. Lim and Lily stared at each other and they started smiling and laughing. Confused, Suridiok questioned why they were laughing when the situation was so serious. After unpacking and getting changed, Lim and Lily sat to listen to Suridiok's quarrels. Lily started stuffing her face and Lim sat listening attentively to what Suridiok had to say. Suridiok rambled on with teary eyes, and after saying what he wanted, he reported that Lim and Lily should go to the White House Guild since there was an emergency call, and that Wang had already gone to the guild. Lim praised Suridiok for his work, and he expressed that he and Lily will be leaving for the White House Guild right away. Lim was honestly surprised by Suridiok's loyalty. He thought Suridiok would totally run away in his absence, but even in this situation, he was here waiting for him and Lily to return. He was moved by Suridiok's loyalty, so he told him to pack his bag quickly so they could leave together for the White House Guild. Suridiok's teary eyes were quickly replaced with happiness, and he quickly left to pack his stuff. As Suridiok got his stuff ready, Lim turned his attention to the rainbow in the sky, and from the remaining colors he calculated that there was less than a week left. But before he could do anything, he needed to go to the White House Guild. The scene then shifts to the White House Guild, and we see a furious Beak, who questions why Lim disappeared. She expressed furiously that she kept trying to contact him because of the emergency call, but Lim turned off his phone. The ticked-off Beak asked Lim if he knew how big of a problem had occurred. Lim turned his head to Suridiok, explaining that he got the rundown from Suridiok as they were on the way. Beak turned her attention to Suridiok, and he hesitated to greet her. Beak quickly recognized him from the lake, but she questioned why he didn't evacuate like the other civilians. Lim interrupted, questioning if there was room left in the guild, and he expressed his plans to stay for a while. Beak wondered if Lim wanted to stay at the guild because of the gate. She grabbed Lim's arm, and she told him that she will call someone to guide Suridiok. But Lim needs to go quickly and meet Changsu. As he was being dragged off, Lim turned to Suridiok and he told him to move the luggages and take a break afterwards. As they were walking to meet Changsu, Beak asked Lim if he knew that he was the only one who didn't respond to the emergency call. She expressed that even Changsu will be angry. Lim had an annoyed look on his face, and he told Beak that Changsu wouldn't be angry if he was the one who didn't answer the phone on a weekend. At the door to Changsu's office, they came across Wang, who was shocked to see Lim and Lily. Wang quickly rushed over to give Lim a hug, however Lim moved out of the way, evading Wang's hug. Afterwards he asked Wang in an annoyed tone if he had gone crazy, and he questioned why Wang attacked him all of the sudden. Wang with teary eyes expressed that he is just glad to see Lim, because he thought he had been abandoned. Lim reached forth his hand to help Wang up, and he expressed that even if people ignore Wang and point their fingers at him, he will never abandon him. Wang reached forth his hand to grab Lim's hand, and he looked up at him like he was some angel. Lim had no plans to abandon Wang since he is very useful to him. Lily approached Wang, and she told him that she wouldn't abandon him either since he is so kind. Wang thanked Lily, and at the same time Lim approached the door with Beak to his side and he knocked. They entered and Beak announced to Changsu that Lim was here. Changsu, who looked angry, asked everyone to take a seat. After taking a seat, Beak tried to explain to Changsu that the reason Lim didn't respond to the emergency call was because he was out of the restricted area. However, Changsu didn't see this as a valid excuse. He turned to Lim questioning if he was aware of the upcoming disaster, and Lim expressed that he was told about it on the way here. Since Lim was already aware of the disaster, Changsu explained that the great sage Aximus pulled him aside and gave him a prophecy. Changsu told the others that Aximus said the 7th Knights will bring light if they are left to the wheels of fate. Changsu thinks Aximus was probably talking about Lim's team, and both Beak and Wang agreed. Lim started blushing after hearing what he said when he was playing the Aximus role, and even though he said that for the good of mankind, it was still embarrassing to hear others repeat his cringy words. In a serious tone, Lim expressed that the prophecy must mean Changsu should let Team 7 carry out a solo operation. Lim knew that it would be a waste of time if his team only handled the monster disposal at a designated location. It's better if his team could act independently, so he could destroy the core gate. The reason the disaster is called the Night of the Seven Moons is because of the 7 gates with the colors of the rainbow that appears among the other 100 gates. The core gate is the root of the other surrounding gates, and if it disappears, the other gates nearby will disappear as well. Lim conveyed the information of the 6 gates that needed to be destroyed as Aximus. However, he told Changsu that the red energy from the final gate seems to be beyond his ability. It's stopping him from sensing its location. Changsu thought this was a shame, but he expressed that Aximus has done more than enough for them. Lim didn't tell them the location of the red gate because of the soul stone, and as he waited to hear Changsu's thoughts on his interpretation of the prophecy, he thought about using the soul stone to achieve his dream of becoming handsome. Changsu turned to Lim, and he expressed that he had the same interpretation of Aximus's prophecy. However, he questioned if a prophecy would have such a simple meaning. Beek and Wang agreed with Changsu. Beek thought there might be some hidden meaning within the prophecy, and Wang was overwhelmed. To him, the prophecy was abstract, making it hard for him to understand. Lim was shocked by the response of his team members and his guild leader. He asked them if a great sage who wants to help people would give them a difficult prophecy. Then he told them that they shouldn't be looking so hard into things. Lim, who made the prophecy, knew for a fact that there was no hidden meaning behind the prophecy. After some persuasion, Team 7 was able to carry out a solo operation, and 3 days later at the White House Guild training ground, we see Lim trying to teach Wang something. Wang was in a squat position, with his arms stretched forwards. Lim pressed Wang's mana points, and afterwards he asked him if he could remember the path through which mana moved in his body just now. However, Wang couldn't remember the path. Lim turned his attention to his phone, which he used to pull up an image of the Sword Emperor's record. He told Wang that he would do it one more time, so he should do his best to remember it well. The Diamond Power Fist in the Sword Emperor's record is a martial art that focuses on external martial arts, so the breathing method is simple. It's just enough to make the body stronger and assist the basic skills, but it will be useful for Wang. He poked Wang's mana points again, and afterwards he asked if he understands now. However, Wang was still a bit confused. The Sword Emperor said that once you quickly learn the teachings, so Lim questioned why Wang was having such a hard time. Lim showed Wang multiple times after this, but still Wang couldn't grasp it. This frustrated him, and in a fury he hit Wang, while expressing that this was already their 30th time. He called Wang a monkey for not being able to grasp it yet. Wang stood up, and in a saddened tone, he expressed that he is getting the hang of it, so he will practice on his own from now on. Lim walked away in frustration, and he expressed that it would be good for Wang to practice on his own since he had something to take care of. As he walked away, Lim thought to himself, as of now only the purple color remains in the rainbow, and the disaster is just around the corner. He approached Lily, who was having a picnic, and he asked her if the chicken was delicious. Lily, with the remains of chicken legs in her hands and crumbs on her face, expressed that it was delicious. Lim was surprised by the scene before him. He bought Lily 3 boxes of chicken, yet she was already finished with them. He wiped the crumbs off of her face with a big smile on his face, and he told Lily to get up so they could go pay for her meal. This shocked Lily, and she asked him if he bought the boxes of chicken for this reason. The red gate that Lim's team will enter once the disaster begins accommodates the Flame Valley. It's a terrain with soaring flames and boiling lava, so you have to go while suppressing the heat. On top of the heat, it's almost impossible to fight the boss monster without an essential item, and that item is the Fang of the Ice Dragon. But that item is currently being kept in the Blackhound Guild, Lim's workplace before he regressed. At the Blackhound headquarters building, we see Lim and Lily approaching the building on Lily's shield. The two of them were wearing a mask, and Lily had changed her hair color with a magic potion. The Blackhound Guild was the guild where Lim worked like a slave for years in his previous life. The work-life balance was terrible, and there was no vacation unless he got sick or injured. They approached a window, and Lim started infusing mana into a knife he was carrying. He narrated to himself that if he had received knee rehabilitation in his past life, then maybe his life would have been a little different. Although he still had some dissatisfaction with his previous life, he recognized that thanks to that he knows everything about the structure of the Blackhound headquarters building. He knows the location of the surveillance cameras and the important facilities. Using the knife infused with mana, Lim was able to stealthily open the window. He entered the building while calling out for Lily to follow behind him carefully. Inside the Blackhound security control room, we see 2 workers who were discussing the fact that everyone is going to the shelter, but they were on duty at a time like this. This really pissed them off, and in a rage they questioned why someone would rob a place like this in such an emergency. One of them expressed that if someone wanted to rob something, they should rob a grocery store or a department store. The other worker questioned if he left the door to the room open, and he expressed that as soon as the disaster starts he is going to run like hell to the guild shelter. As they explained their frustrations to each other, one of them noticed that one of the infrared cameras was off. They turned their attention to the camera, questioning if the camera was off because of a broken lens. After further observation, they realized the broken camera was the one in front of this room's door. Suddenly the doors to the room opened, and something swiftly made its way inside and dealt with the two workers. After dealing with the workers, Lim sat in one of their chairs, and while taking off his mask he expressed that he hasn't been here in a long time. Afterwards he pressed a big yellow announcement button, and he announced to the Blackhound Guild members that someone had invaded the Guild Master's room. He expressed that there were 4 intruders and they were armed and they do not appear to be hunters. He asked the guild members to move all personnel in the building to the Guild Master's room. The Blackhound Guild members got together and they started heading to the Guild Master's office at top speed. And shortly after they arrived they informed the security control room. However, in a daze they questioned why there was no one in the room. Lim smiled, then he closed the door to the room, and he pressed the button so the lockdown wall would start coming down. Confused, the Blackhound Guild members reported to the control room that the door was locked. Lim, with a smile on his face, told them that he captured the intruders, but since they will be stuck in there for a long time, and he didn't want them to get bored, he turned on some music for the Blackhound Guild members to listen to. They headed confidently to the Blackhound Guild's storage room, and Lily broke down the door, and their eyes sparkled with greed as the glow of the Blackhound Guild's riches filled the room. Lim made his way through the riches searching for the item he came here for. Lily, who was walking besides Lim, noticed a golden statue of a chicken. She quickly made her way over and she questioned if everything in here was worth a lot of money. Lily approached Lim and she asked him if they would take everything in the storage room. Lim didn't see the point in taking everything as they were unnecessarily heavy, so he told her that they have nowhere to put it all. Afterwards he left Lily to herself and he continued searching around for a special weapon room, a place he knows is where the Blackhound Guild stores otherworldly objects of unknown purpose. He found the room, and inside were all otherworldly objects, and in the middle of the room was a case displaying a fancy box. Inside this fancy box was the fang of the iced dragon. Lim quickly grabbed the fang of the iced dragon out of the display case, and he stored it in his clothes. Afterwards he told Lily that they should go now. Lily, with her head turned, expressed that she is curious about what's inside a place. Lim asked what place she was talking about, and Lily pointed at a wall. She told Lim that behind the wall there's a lot of mana. Lim activated his watch's ability, and with a smile he told Lily to step back for a moment. Then he punched down the wall, revealing a storage of soul stones. Lim praised Lily, and as a bonus, he promised to get her cheese balls. He reached forth his hands and the watch started devouring all the soul stones. Lim told his watch that it could eat all of these soul stones, but he has plans to eat the next one. After the watch absorbed all of the soul stones, Lim stared at his hands, noticing that not much had changed. The nails of the gauntlet were extruding now, but that was it. With this, Lim thought he got enough to match his hard labor in his previous life, that he wasn't properly paid for, and he told Lily that they should go now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button.